My sister ran away with her lover and left me with her seriously ill 8-year-old son. He is your child now, my sister sneered while I cried helplessly. 17 years later, my sister asked what had happened to the poor boy. But then, a tall, handsome man in a suit entered the room, and my sister's face turned pale. They say blood is thicker than water, but in my experience, blood just makes the shark circle faster. My name is Nia, and as I sit here in my penthouse, overlooking the glittering skyline of Atlanta, swirling a glass of vintage Pinot Noir, I can finally tell you the story of how I turned a tragedy into an empire. But to understand why the view from these floor-to-ceiling windows tastes so sweet, you have to understand the bitterness of where I came from. Before I continue, please like and subscribe if you have ever had to clean up a mess you did not make. Let me take you back 17 years. It was not a night of silk robes and expensive wine. It was a night that smelled of damp drywall, cheap hairspray, and desperation. The rain was hammering against the single-pane window of our cramped two-bedroom apartment in the West End. It was the kind of storm that rattled your bones, but the sound of the thunder was nothing compared to the wheezing coming from the small, stained mattress in the corner of the living room. Malik, my nephew, was only 8 years old. His chest was heaving up and down, a terrible whistling sound escaping his lips with every breath. He was having one of his worst asthma attacks yet, and the nebulizer machine was sputtering, struggling to turn the liquid medicine into the mist he so desperately needed. I was on my knees beside him, rubbing his back, whispering that it was going to be okay, even though I was terrified it wouldn't be. Suddenly, the front door banged open. The wind howled into the room, bringing with it a spray of cold rain. My sister Jasmine stood there. She did not look like a mother concerned for her sick child. She looked like she was going to a red carpet event. She was wearing a tight red dress that cost more than our rent. Her hair was perfectly straightened, and she was dragging 2 massive suitcases behind her. Jasmine closed the door. I yelled over the sound of the storm and the machine. The damp air is making his chest worse. She didn't move. She just stood there looking at the apartment with a look of pure disgust, as if the poverty was a disease she could catch by breathing the air. Outside, a car horn honked aggressively. It was the sharp, demanding blast of a Porsche. "I am leaving, Nia," Jasmine said. Her voice was cold, flat, devoid of any emotion. "What do you mean you are leaving?" I asked, standing up, but keeping one hand on Malik's shaking shoulder. "Where are you going in this storm?" "I am done," she said, kicking the door shut behind her but not locking it. "Brad is waiting outside. We are moving to Europe. He has business in Paris and he wants me to go with him." I stared at her, unable to process the words. Brad was the white real estate developer she had been seeing for 3 months. He was flashy, arrogant, and made it very clear he didn't like children, especially sick ones. "You are going to Paris," I repeated. "Okay, we'll wait until the storm passes. We need to get Malik to the emergency room. His breathing is not right, Jasmine. The machine is not working properly." She laughed, but it was a dry, humorless sound. "You do not get it, do you? I am not taking Malik. Brad does not want baggage. He wants a fresh start. And frankly, so do I. I am 28 years old, Nia. I am too beautiful to be stuck in this ghetto nursing a sick kid who is never going to get better. I deserve a life." The room went silent except for the terrifying sound of Malik gasping for air. I looked at the boy whose eyes were wide with panic, tears streaming down his face. He heard every word. He heard his own mother call him baggage. "You cannot be serious," I hissed, stepping toward her. "You cannot just abandon him. He is your son. He is sick. He needs insurance. He needs his mother." "He is your problem now," she sneered, checking her reflection in the hallway mirror and fixing her lipstick. "You always wanted to play the saint. You always wanted to be the responsible one. Well, here is your chance. Congratulations, you are a mother." Outside, the horn honked again. 3 short blasts. Brad was getting impatient. Jasmine turned to leave, but then she stopped. Her eyes darted to the kitchen counter. There, sitting on the chipped formica, was an old ceramic cookie jar. It was where I kept our emergency cash. Every tip I made waitressing, every extra dollar from sewing hems for the neighbors, it all went into that jar. There was exactly $800 in there. It was everything we had. It was for rent, and more importantly, it was for Malik's new inhalers and the specialist visit we had scheduled for next week. I saw the greed flash in her eyes. "Don't you dare," I warned her, stepping forward. "Jasmine, that is for his medicine." She moved faster than I expected. She lunged for the jar, grabbing it with manicured claws. "I need startup money, Nia," she spat, clutching the jar against her chest. "Paris is expensive. Brad is rich, but a girl needs her own pocket money." I grabbed her arm. "You are stealing from your dying son. Have you lost your mind? Give it back." She shoved me hard. I stumbled back, tripping over the edge of the rug and falling hard onto the floor. My elbow cracked against the wood, sending a jolt of pain up my arm. "Get off me, you loser," she screamed. "This is my money. I earned it by putting up with this miserable life for 8 years. Consider it my severance package." She popped the lid off the jar, dumped the crumpled bills into her designer purse, and threw the empty ceramic jar onto the floor. It shattered into 100 pieces, just like the look in Malik's eyes. The Porsche horn blared again, a long, angry sound this time. "I have to go," Jasmine said, zipping up her purse. "Do not try to contact me. I am changing my number. And do not try to find Brad. If you ruin this for me, Nia, I swear to God, I will make sure you regret it." She grabbed the handles of her suitcases. She didn't look at me. She didn't look at the apartment. And worst of all, she didn't even glance at the little boy curling into a ball on the mattress, gasping for air. "He is your child now," she repeated, that cruel sneer twisting her beautiful face into something ugly. "Good luck. You are going to need it." She opened the door and the wind ripped through the room again. She stepped out into the rain, the door slamming shut behind her with a finality that echoed in my soul. I sat there on the floor, surrounded by broken ceramic shards, listening to the click of her heels fading down the hallway. Then came the roar of a high-performance engine tires screeching against wet pavement, and then silence. She was gone. She had taken the money. She had taken the hope. And she had left me with a child who was turning blue. Panic surged through me, replacing the shock. I scrambled over to Malik. His lips were tinged with violet. His chest was moving, but no air was coming in. The nebulizer had completely stopped working, likely shorted out by the power fluctuations from the storm. "Malik, baby, look at me," I cried, grabbing his face. "Breathe with me, come on." He shook his head weakly, his eyes rolling back. He was suffocating. I realized with terrifying clarity that I had no car. My old sedan had broken down 2 weeks ago. I had no money to call a cab because Jasmine had taken every single dollar. And the ambulance in this neighborhood during a storm like this could take 40 minutes to arrive. We didn't have 40 minutes. We didn't even have 4. I scooped him up in my arms. He was 8, but he was so frail he felt like he weighed nothing. I wrapped him in the only dry blanket we had and ran out the door. The rain hit us like a physical blow. It was freezing. I ran down the 3 flights of stairs, nearly slipping on the wet concrete. I burst out onto the street screaming for help. "Please, somebody help me!" I screamed, my voice tearing at my throat. "My nephew can't breathe." But the street was empty. The storm had driven everyone inside. Cars were parked dark and silent. The windows of the apartment buildings were shut tight against the weather. I started running toward the main road, aiming for the hospital that was 2 miles away. My lungs burned. My soaked clothes dragged me down. Malik's body was going limp in my arms. "Stay with me, Malik," I sobbed, stumbling through a puddle that went up to my ankles. "Do not you dare give up. Do not let her win. You hear me? Do not let her win." I saw headlights approaching. A car was moving slowly through the rain. I ran into the middle of the road, waving my arms frantically, shielding Malik with my body. "Stop. Please stop." The car swerved and screeched to a halt just inches from my legs. It was a beat-up old Ford Taurus, not a Porsche. The driver's side window rolled down. A young white man with messy brown hair and glasses looked out, his eyes wide with alarm. He looked like he was barely out of college. "What are you doing?" he yelled over the rain. "You could have been killed." "My son," I gasped, correcting myself without thinking. "My son is dying. He has asthma. The hospital, please." The young man didn't ask questions. He didn't lock his doors. He didn't look at my ragged clothes or my dark skin with suspicion. He just unlocked the passenger door. "Get in," he shouted. I dove into the car, clutching Malik to my chest. The heater was on, and the warmth hit us instantly. The young man floored the gas, the old car groaning as it surged forward. "I am Lucas," he said, his knuckles white on the steering wheel as he navigated the slick roads. "I am a law student. I know a shortcut to Grady Memorial. Is he breathing?" "Barely," I whispered, pressing my ear to Malik's chest. "Hang on," Lucas said. We tore through the rainy streets of Atlanta. In the back of my mind, I thought of Jasmine probably sipping champagne in the passenger seat of a Porsche, headed to the airport to fly first class to Paris. She thought she had escaped. She thought she had left the trash behind. But as I looked down at Malik, who was fighting for every single breath, and then at the stranger named Lucas, who was driving like a maniac to save a black child, he didn't even know I felt a fire ignite in my belly. It was a cold, hard fire. Jasmine had taken the money. She had taken the easy way out. But she had made a mistake. She had underestimated me. And she had definitely underestimated the will of the boy in my arms. We screeched into the emergency bay of the hospital. Lucas was out of the car before I could even unbuckle, running to get a gurney. As the doctors swarmed around us, taking Malik from my arms and rushing him behind the double doors, I stood there, dripping wet, shivering, with nothing in my pockets but lint and rage. Lucas stood beside me, putting a hesitant hand on my shoulder. "He is going to be okay," he said softly. I looked at him, and then I looked at the automatic doors where my sister should have been. "He has to be," I said, my voice trembling, not with cold but with a promise. "Because one day she is going to come back. And when she does, I want him to be standing tall enough to look down on her." That was the night my sister died to me. And it was the night Nia, the victim, died too. In her place, something else was born. Something stronger. Something that would spend the next 17 years building a fortress so high that Jasmine would break her neck trying to climb it. But I am getting ahead of myself. You are probably wondering how a waitress with $0 and a sick child ended up owning half the medical supply chain in Georgia. Well, it started with a lie, a lawyer, and a lot of sleepless nights. The automatic doors of Grady Memorial Hospital did not welcome us with open arms. Instead, they swallowed us into a chaotic belly of fluorescent lights and human misery. The air smelled of industrial strength, disinfectant, stale coffee, and the metallic tang of dried blood. It was a smell I would never forget, the scent of poverty and desperation mixed together. Lucas did not just drop us at the curb. He parked his car illegally in the ambulance bay and helped me carry Malik inside. My nephew was barely conscious now, his head lolling back against my shoulder, his small chest fluttering like a trapped bird. I rushed to the intake desk, water dripping from my clothes onto the linoleum floor. The nurse behind the high glass partition did not even look up. She was typing on a computer, her face illuminated by the blue screen, looking bored and tired. "Please," I gasped, slamming my hand on the counter. "My nephew cannot breathe. He has severe asthma. He needs oxygen now." The nurse slowly peeled her eyes away from the screen. She looked me up and down, taking in my soaked thrift store clothes and the shivering boy in my arms. There was no urgency in her movement. "Name and date of birth," she said, her voice flat. "Malik Thompson, August 14th. He is 8. Please, he is turning blue." "Does he have insurance?" she asked, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. I froze. I knew the answer. Jasmine had canceled everything to save money for her trip. "No," I stammered. "His mother, she canceled it. But I will pay. I will figure it out. Just please help him." The nurse sighed a long, heavy sound that made me want to scream. She reached for a clipboard and slid it under the glass. "Fill this out. We need a guardian's signature. And be aware, without insurance, the wait time is currently 6 hours. Unless he stops breathing completely, he waits his turn. Take a seat." I wanted to smash the glass. I wanted to reach through and shake her, but I knew that would only get us thrown out by the security guard standing in the corner. I grabbed the clipboard and turned around. The waiting room was a war zone. Crying babies, old men coughing up their lungs, people holding bloody rags to their heads. Every chair was taken. I found a spot on the floor near a vending machine and sat down, cradling Malik in my lap. He was burning up now. The wheezing had turned into a terrifying high-pitched squeak. I pulled out my flip phone. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped it twice. I needed help. I needed someone to tell me this wasn't happening. I dialed my Aunt Patrice. She was the matriarch of the family, the one who always claimed family came first. "Auntie," I sobbed as soon as she picked up. "It is Nia. Jasmine left. She left Malik. He is dying, Auntie. We are at the hospital and they won't see him because we have no money." There was a pause on the other end. Then Aunt Patrice's voice came through, but it was not warm. It was sharp and accusatory. "Stop the drama, Nia. Jasmine called me from the airport. She told me everything. She told you she abandoned her son." I asked, confused. "She told me you forced her out," Patrice snapped. "She said you have been jealous of her relationship with Brad for months. She said you made the environment so toxic she had to leave for her own mental health. She is going to Paris to build a future for that boy, and you are trying to guilt-trip her before her plane even takes off." I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. The gaslighting was so immediate, so complete, it took my breath away. "She took the money, Auntie," I whispered. "She took the medicine money. Malik is in my arms right now and he cannot breathe." "Oh, stop it," Patrice said dismissively. "The boy always has a sniffle. Give him some water and stop trying to ruin your sister's happiness. You always were the selfish one, Nia. Always trying to be the victim. Do not call me again until you apologize to Jasmine." The line went dead. I sat there staring at the phone. My own family believed I was the villain. They were celebrating the golden child who ran away and condemning the scapegoat who stayed to clean up the mess. Tears, hot and angry, streamed down my face, mixing with the rainwater. I was completely alone. Here, a paper cup of hot chocolate appeared in front of my face. I looked up. It was Lucas, the law student with the messy hair. I thought he had left hours ago. "You are still here," I said, my voice cracking. He sat down on the dirty floor next to me, ignoring the stares of the people around us. He adjusted his glasses and pointed at the clipboard in my hand. "I heard what the nurse said," Lucas said quietly. "And I overheard your phone call. I am sorry. Your family sounds complicated." "That is one word for it," I muttered, taking the cup. "Why are you helping me? You do not know us." Lucas shrugged, looking awkward. He pulled a pen out of his pocket. "I am studying family law because I hate bullies," he said simply. "And that nurse is a bully. And your sister sounds like a bully too. Look, give me the clipboard." He took the papers from my trembling hands. "If we file this as a standard intake, they will make you wait because you are not the legal guardian," he explained, flipping through the pages rapidly. "But there is a loophole. If we declare in loco parentis due to emergency abandonment and we mark his condition as critical respiratory distress under the EMTALA Act, they cannot refuse immediate stabilization regardless of ability to pay." He started writing furiously, using legal terms I did not understand. He wasn't just a driver anymore. He was a weapon. For the first time that night, I looked at him properly. He was wearing a faded band t-shirt and jeans that had seen better days. He didn't look like a savior. He looked like a nerd. But in that moment, he was the most beautiful human being I had ever seen. He stood up, walked back to the intake desk, and slammed the clipboard down. I didn't hear what he said to the nurse, but I saw his posture. He wasn't asking. He was demanding. He pointed at the paper, then at Malik, Then at the security camera in the corner. The nurse's face went pale. She picked up the phone immediately. 2 minutes later, double doors burst open. A team of nurses in scrubs ran out. "We have a pediatric code respiratory," one of them shouted. They grabbed Malik from my arms. I tried to follow, but Lucas held me back gently. "Let them work, Nia," he said. "You did your part. Let them do theirs." I watched them wheel Malik away, his small hand hanging off the side of the gurney. And then the piercing sound of an alarm cut through the noise of the waiting room. It was a sound that stopped my heart. Code blue, someone screamed from behind the doors. "We are losing him. Get the crash cart. Now." My knees gave out. I collapsed onto the hospital floor, a primal scream tearing from my throat. Code blue. That meant his heart had stopped. My 8-year-old nephew. My son was dead. "No!" I screamed, clawing at the floor. "Malik, do not you dare. Do not you dare die on me." Lucas dropped to his knees beside me, wrapping his arms around me as I thrashed. He didn't say it was going to be okay. He didn't lie. He just held me while I fell apart, acting as an anchor in a world that was trying to wash me away. For 3 minutes, time did not exist. There was only the sound of that flatline tone echoing in my head, louder than the storm outside, louder than my aunt's cruel words. Then a different sound. A steady, rhythmic beep. Beep, beep, beep. "We have a pulse," a doctor shouted. "He is back. Get him to ICU. Stabilize him." I went limp in Lucas's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. He was alive. He had fought his way back. We spent the next 72 hours in a plastic chair next to Malik's bed in the ICU. I did not sleep. I did not eat. I just held his hand, watching the chest rise and fall, terrified that if I looked away, he would stop breathing again. Lucas stayed for the first 24 hours. He slept in the chair next to me. He brought me cafeteria sandwiches that tasted like cardboard, but felt like a feast. He went to his car and brought back a hoodie for me because my clothes were still damp. Why, I asked him again on the second night, watching Malik sleep under the tangle of tubes and wires. "Why are you doing this?" Lucas looked at Malik, then at me. His eyes were tired behind his glasses. "My brother had asthma," he said softly. "My parents had money, so he got the best care. He is a tennis player now. It is not fair that Malik almost died just because your sister wanted a Porsche. Fairness is all I care about, Nia. And I think you are going to need a lawyer to make sure she never hurts him again." I looked at this stranger, this white man who had stepped up when my own blood had stepped on me. And I realized that family was not about whose DNA you shared. It was about who stayed when the storm hit. "You are hired," I said, a small tired smile touching my lips. "But I cannot pay you." Lucas smiled back. "Win the case and you can buy me a coffee." 72 hours of hell had forged a bond that would last a lifetime. But as I watched Malik breathe, I knew the war was just beginning. Jasmine was gone, but she had left a mountain of debt and a broken child. I had no job, no home of my own, and a family that hated me. I looked at the window, seeing my reflection against the dark Atlanta sky. The scared girl from the apartment was gone. In the reflection, I saw a mother. And a mother would do anything, absolutely anything, to protect her cub, even if she had to burn the whole world down to keep him warm. Little did I know the opportunity to start that fire would come sooner than I expected, and it would start with a text message from my landlord. 6 months later, the adrenaline of that first night had long since evaporated, leaving behind a residue of exhaustion that settled deep in my bones. The text message from my landlord was just the first domino in a long, agonizing chain reaction. We were evicted 3 weeks after Malik was discharged. The mold in the apartment was making his lungs worse, but the lack of a roof over our heads was an even bigger threat. I was working 3 jobs. By day, I waited tables at a diner where the tips were as meager as the sympathy. By evening, I cleaned office buildings, scrubbing toilets used by people who made more in an hour than I made in a month. And at night, when Malik finally fell into a fitful sleep, I sewed alterations for the church ladies who whispered about me behind my back. They called me the girl whose sister did well, while I was clearly being punished for some secret sin, but hard work was not enough. It is never enough when the system is designed to crush you. Malik was not getting better. The asthma was just a symptom of a deeper structural issue with his lungs, caused by years of neglect and secondhand smoke from Jasmine's old boyfriends. One humid Tuesday afternoon, Dr. Evans, a specialist Lucas had miraculously convinced to see us pro bono, sat me down. The office was quiet, the kind of expensive quiet that poor people like me find unsettling. Nia, Dr. Evans said, sliding a grayscale image across the mahogany desk. Look at this shadow. Malik's bronchial tubes are collapsing. The medication is a band-aid on a bullet wound. He needs a bronchial reconstruction surgery. And he needs it within the month, or the next attack will be his last. I felt the blood drain from my face. Surgery. The word tasted like metal. How much I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The hospital estimate is around $150,000, he said gently. And without insurance, they will require at least $50,000 upfront to even book the operating room. $50,000. He might as well have said $50 million. I had $200 in my checking account and a jar of quarters on the dresser. I walked out of that office into the blinding Atlanta sun, feeling like I was underwater. I went home to the tiny studio apartment we were renting in a basement. Malik was sitting on the floor, trying to build a castle out of old playing cards. He looked so thin, his collarbones pushing against his skin like fragile wings. I went to the bathroom, turned on the shower to hide the sound, and cried until I dry heaved. Then I washed my face, looked in the mirror, and made a decision. I had too much pride to beg, but for him I would sell my soul. I tried the family first. Aunt Patrice blocked my number after the second call. My cousins claimed they were broke while posting photos of new sneakers. I was radioactive. Then I saw it. I was scrolling through social media on a burner phone looking for any trace of her. And there she was, Jasmine. She had not blocked me, probably because she wanted me to see. She wanted me to know. The photo was tagged in Monaco. She was wearing a white bikini, holding a glass of champagne, sitting on the deck of a yacht that looked bigger than my entire apartment building. The caption read, "Living my best life. No baggage. Just bliss." Rage is a powerful fuel. It burns hotter than grief. I called Lucas. I need her number, I told him. I know she changed it. But you are good at finding things. Find me her number in Monaco. Lucas didn't ask why. He didn't give me a lecture on moving on. 2 hours later, he texted me a string of digits with a French country code. I waited until it was midnight in Atlanta, which meant it was early morning in Monaco. I wanted to catch her off guard. I sat on the edge of the bed watching Malik's chest rise and fall, rise and fall. I pressed dial. The phone rang 4 times. I was about to hang up when the line clicked open. "Allo," a voice said. It was her, but it sounded different, affecting a fake accent, sounding bored and expensive. "Jasmine," I said. Silence. Heavy, thick silence. Then a sigh that sounded like a tire deflating. "How did you get this number?" she asked. Her voice dropped, the fake accent instantly returning to the sharp, annoyed tone I knew so well. "I told you I wanted a clean break, Nia." "He needs surgery, Jasmine," I said, cutting straight to the chase. I didn't have time for pleasantries. "His lungs are collapsing. Dr. Evans says he has less than a month. I need $50,000. I heard the clinking of glass in the background. Someone laughed, a man with a deep, booming voice. "Who is it, babe?" the man asked. It sounded like Brad. "Just a wrong number, darling." Jasmine called back, her voice dripping with honey. "Go back to sleep, I will be right there." She lowered her voice to a hiss. "You are ruining my morning, Nia. We are docking in Saint-Tropez in an hour. I do not have time for your drama." This is not drama, I pleaded, gripping the phone so tight my knuckles turned white. This is your son's life. He is 8 years old. He asks about you every day. He thinks you are working to save money for him. Do not make him a liar. Please, Jasmine, you are on a yacht. You have the money. Just wire it to the hospital directly. You never have to speak to us again. I heard the sound of a lighter flicking, then a long exhale. She was smoking. Look, Nia, she said, and her voice was terrifyingly calm. Let me be clear, because apparently you are slow. I do not have a son. My life started 6 months ago when I walked out that door. Brad and I are getting married. He comes from a prominent family in Connecticut. Do you know what they would do if they found out I have a sick, half-dead kid from a mistake I made in high school in the ghetto? They would disown us. He is not a mistake, I said, tears streaming down my face. He is a human being, and he is going to die without this surgery. Then let nature take its course, she said. The world stopped. The air left the room. What did you say? I whispered. I said, let it go. She replied, sounding bored. Honestly, Nia, it is probably for the best. He has always been weak. He is going to be a burden on you forever. If he dies, just cremate him. It is cheaper than a burial. Brad does not want to be involved with my ghetto past, and neither do I, so do me a favor, lose this number, and if you call again, I will change it again. Goodbye, Nia. Click. The line went dead. I sat there with the phone pressed to my ear, listening to the dial tone. It was a sound of finality, a sound of absolute abandonment. But she didn't know one thing. Slowly, calmly, I reached down to the small digital recorder Lucas had lent me. It was sitting on the nightstand, the red light glowing steadily in the dark room. I pressed the stop button. I rewound the tape. I pressed play. If he dies, just cremate him. It is cheaper. Brad does not want to be involved with my ghetto past. The voice was crystal clear, every cruel syllable, every ounce of malice. I looked at Malik. He shifted in his sleep, a small whimper escaping his lips. I wiped the tears from my face. They were cold now. The sadness was gone. It had been replaced by something else, something dark and solid and heavy like a stone in my chest. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the streetlights illuminating the cracks in the pavement. You made a mistake, Jasmine, I whispered to the empty room. You thought you were burying your past, but you just planted a seed. I picked up the phone again. But this time I wasn't calling to beg, I was calling Lucas. Lucas picked up on the first ring, his voice groggy with sleep. Nia, is everything okay? No, I said, my voice steady and hard as steel. But it will be. I got the recording, Lucas. She said it. She said all of it. There was a pause on the other end. I could hear Lucas sitting up, the rustle of sheets. What do you want to do? He asked. I want to sue her, I said, but not yet. She is in international waters. We cannot touch her there. Then what? I looked at the recording device. It was small, black, and unassuming, but it was the key to everything. We wait, I said. We save him ourselves, and we keep this tape. Because one day she is going to come back. People like her always run out of other people's money eventually. And when she does, when she tries to rewrite history, I am going to play this for the world. But first, we need $50,000. How? Lucas asked gently. I looked at the corner of the room where I kept my sewing machine and the pile of sketches I had been drawing on napkins and backs of envelopes for years. They were designs for medical scrubs, better scrubs, scrubs that didn't chafe, that had pockets in the right places, that made people feel human. I had an idea. It was crazy. It was desperate. But it was all I had. I am going to sell everything, I told him. And then, I am going to build something she can never touch. The next morning, I did not go to the diner. I went to the pawn shop. I sold my mother's gold locket. I sold the television. I sold the extra mattress. I walked out with $800. It was not 50,000, but it was seed money. I bought fabric, high-quality antimicrobial fabric from a wholesaler who was closing down. I spent the next 3 nights awake sewing. I made 20 sets of scrubs. On Friday, I walked into the hospital not as a patient's aunt, but as a saleswoman. I went straight to the break room where the nurses changed shifts. I am not asking for charity, I told the head nurse, a formidable woman named Barbara, who had seen me crying in the hallway weeks ago. I am asking you to try these on. If you like them, buy them. If you do not, throw them away. Barbara looked at me, then at the scrubs. She touched the fabric. She looked at the stitching. It was perfect. I had sewn my rage into every seam. She tried them on. She came out of the bathroom looking shocked. "These have pockets for my pager and my phone," she said, "and the waist does not dig in." $20, I said. She bought 2 pairs. The other nurses bought the rest. I walked out with $400. I turned that 400 into more fabric. I worked like a woman possessed. I slept 3 hours a night. I sewed on the bus. I sewed while waiting for Malik's appointments. Week by week, the jar of quarters turned into a bank account. It was slow. Too slow. Malik was getting worse. But then the miracle happened. Not a handout, a business deal. A purchasing manager from a private clinic saw one of my scrubs on a nurse at the grocery store. He called me. He needed 500 uniforms for his new staff. He needed them in 2 weeks. He was willing to pay a 50% deposit up front. That deposit was exactly enough to cover the anesthesia for Malik's surgery. I signed the contract with a shaking hand. I looked at the check. It was the most money I had ever seen. I walked into Dr. Evans's office and slapped the check on his desk. "Book the room," I said. As Malik was wheeled into surgery, I held his hand until the very last second. "Mom," he whispered. He had started calling me Mom a month ago. "I am here, baby," I said. "I am right here." When the doors closed, I sat in the waiting room. I didn't pray to God. I talked to Jasmine. "You wanted him to burn," I thought, clutching the recorder in my pocket. "But you forgot that fire refines gold." "We are not burning, sister. We are being forged." The surgery lasted 8 hours. When Dr. Evans came out, he looked exhausted, but he was smiling. "He made it," he said. I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. I stood up, straightened my blazer, which I had sewn myself, and nodded. "Good," I said. "Now I have a business to run. Because this hospital bill is just the beginning." That was the turning point. The victim died in that waiting room. The CEO was born. And as I walked out of the hospital that night under the same stars that were shining on Jasmine's yacht in Monaco, I made a vow. She was living the high life on borrowed time. I was building an empire on solid ground. And when our paths crossed again, and I knew they would, she would not be facing her little sister. She would be facing a shark. And this shark smelled blood. The surgery was a success, but survival comes with a price tag. The hospital bills arrived like a blizzard-white envelopes piling up on our small kitchen table, each one demanding amounts that looked like telephone numbers. Jasmine was gone, living her best life on the French Riviera, while I was left drowning in the wake of her decisions. But I had made a vow in that waiting room, and I intended to keep it. If you asked me to describe the next 5 years, I would describe them as a tunnel. Dark, narrow, but with a light at the end that I was sprinting toward. Sleep became a luxury I could not afford. My day started at 4 in the morning. I spent the early hours cleaning office buildings downtown, the smell of industrial bleach permanently etched into my nostrils. I scrubbed floors that Jasmine would not have deigned to walk on. I emptied trash cans for executives who looked through me as if I were made of glass. By 8, I was rushing to my second job at a call center, taking abuse from angry customers who wanted to scream at someone about their internet bills. And at night, after getting Malik to bed, I fulfilled orders for my scrub business, my fingers often bleeding from pinpricks, my eyes burning from the strain. But I was not alone in the tunnel. Lucas was there. He had passed the bar exam and was working as a junior associate at a firm that handled corporate law. But his real passion was the case file labeled Thompson versus Thompson. He told me that we needed to secure Malik's future before Jasmine ever thought about coming back. The custody hearing was brutal even without Jasmine present. The judge, a stern man with wire-rimmed glasses, looked at my income statements with skepticism. "You are a single woman working 3 jobs living in a basement apartment," the judge noted, peering over his spectacles. "How can you provide a stable environment for a child with such complex medical needs?" I stood up, my hands trembling slightly but my voice steady. Lucas had prepped me for this. "Your Honor," I said. "Stability is not about square footage or a trust fund. Stability is showing up. Stability is holding his hand through every nebulizer treatment. Stability is working 20 hours a day so he has the medicine he needs. His mother is in Monaco drinking champagne. I am here. I have always been here." Lucas stepped in, then presenting the evidence with the precision of a surgeon. He laid out the timeline of abandonment. He showed the court the receipts for every inhaler, every doctor's visit, every pair of shoes I had bought. And finally, he played a snippet of the recording. Just enough for the judge to hear Jasmine's voice dismissing her son's life as an inconvenience. The courtroom went silent. The judge's expression softened. He banged his gavel, a sound that echoed like a cannon shot. "Sole legal and physical custody is awarded to the Aunt Nia Thompson. The biological mother's rights are hereby suspended due to gross negligence and abandonment." We walked out of that courthouse into the bright Atlanta sunshine, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Malik was mine. Legally, morally, completely. No one could take him away. But legal victory does not pay the rent. The turning point came from the most unexpected place. I was cleaning the back offices of a failing medical supply company one Tuesday night. They were liquidating their assets, preparing to shut down. The manager, a defeated-looking man named Mr. Henderson, was directing movers to throw boxes into a dumpster. "What is in those?" I asked, leaning on my mop. "Garbage," he grunted. "Old diagnostic machines. Pulse oximeters, blood pressure monitors, a few portable ultrasounds. They are outdated models. The batteries are shot, and the screens have scratches. Nobody wants them. We are just writing them off as a loss." I looked at the pile. To him it was trash. To me, it looked like gold. I knew from my nights in the hospital with Malik that equipment shortages were a nightmare for underfunded clinics. "I will take them," I said. Mr. Henderson laughed. "You want a dumpster full of broken electronics? Be my guest. It saves me the disposal fee." I spent my entire savings, the money I had been hoarding for a car, to rent a U-Haul truck. Lucas helped me load everything. We filled my basement apartment floor to ceiling with machines. My living room looked like a graveyard for medical robots. For the next 6 months, I taught myself basic electronics. I watched tutorials on YouTube until my eyes crossed. I learned how to solder circuit boards. I learned how to replace LCD screens. I scoured eBay for cheap replacement parts. Malik was my assistant. And this is where the true miracle happened. Most kids played video games. Malik played with circuit boards. Even at 10 years old, his mind worked differently. He would sit on the floor amidst the wires and gears, his wheezing breath a constant rhythm in the background, and he would see connections I missed. "Mom, this sensor is not broken," he said one evening, holding up a probe from a pulse oximeter. "The wiring is just loose. If we bypass this resistor, it works perfectly. Look." He attached it to his own finger, and the machine beeped to life, displaying his heart rate. I stared at him. He had fixed in 5 minutes what I had been struggling with for 2 hours. "How did you know that?" I asked. "I read the manual." He shrugged, pointing to a dense technical PDF he had pulled up on our old laptop. "And I read a book about conductivity. It just makes sense." It was the first glimpse of the genius hiding inside his fragile body. His illness had forced him to understand the machine of his own body, and that curiosity had spilled over into the machines around him. He devoured medical textbooks the way other kids devoured comic books. By age 11, he could explain the pathophysiology of his asthma better than some residents I had met. We became a team, Nia and Malik. I handled the business, he handled the tech. I started cold calling small clinics in rural Georgia, places that couldn't afford the shiny new equipment from the big corporations. I have refurbished hospital-grade monitors for 20% of the market price I told them, with a 1-year warranty. The order started as a trickle, then a stream. A clinic in Macon bought 5 monitors. A nursing home in Savannah bought 10 blood pressure cuffs. I registered the business name, Naya's MedTech Solutions. It sounded professional. It sounded big. They didn't know the headquarters was a basement next to a noisy furnace. The real breakthrough came when a private urgent care chain in Atlanta needed to equip 3 new locations fast. Their usual supplier was backordered for months. I promised them I could deliver in 48 hours. I didn't sleep for 2 days. Lucas came over after work, loosening his tie and rolling up his sleeves to help us pack boxes. Malik tested every single unit, placing a gold sticker on the bottom that said, "Inspected by MT." We delivered the order on time. The check they handed me was for $30,000. I sat in the front seat of the rental truck and stared at the check. It was more money than I had made in 3 years of cleaning toilets. "We did it," I whispered. We went to a steakhouse that night. Not a fancy one, but one where we could order appetizers and dessert. I watched Malik laugh at something Lucas said, his eyes bright, his cheeks flushing with health. The new medication we could finally afford was working. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was living. Lucas reached across the table and covered my hand with his. "You know this is just the beginning, right?" he said. "You have an eye for this, Nia. You see value where others see waste." He was right. I quit my cleaning job the next day, then the call center. I kept the sewing business for a few more months, just out of paranoia, but eventually I let that go too. We moved out of the basement into a modest 3-bedroom townhouse. It had windows, real windows that let in sunlight. Malik finally had his own room, a space free of dampness and mold. I bought him a proper desk and his first high-powered computer. Within a week, he had hacked into the school district's library system because they didn't have the medical journals he wanted to read. I had to go to the principal's office not to apologize, but to negotiate. "He is bored," I told the principal, who looked terrified of my 10-year-old son. "Put him in the gifted program, give him access to the university database, or I will send him to a school that knows what to do with a mind like this." They moved him up 2 grades. Years 1 through 5 were the hardest years of my life, but they were also the best. We were building something. Every brick was laid with sweat and love. And all the while, silence was my shield. I never posted about the business on social media. I never tagged our location. To the outside world, specifically to Jasmine and the family members who spied for her, I was still struggling. I posted vague statuses about how hard it was to make ends meet. I shared articles about the rising cost of living. "Let them think I am drowning," I told Lucas one night as we went over the quarterly earnings. The business had just hit its first million in revenue. "Why hide it?" Lucas asked. "You should be proud." "I am proud," I said, looking at the spreadsheet. "But I know my sister. If she smells money, she will come back like a shark sensing blood in the water. She will claim she has changed. She will claim she wants to be a mother. I am not building this for her to tear down. I am building a fortress. And when she finally shows up, she is going to hit a wall so hard it will shatter her." And so we grew in the shadows. Nia's MedTech Solutions acquired a warehouse, then a small competitor. I hired staff. I started wearing tailored suits, but I kept my old car. I kept the facade. But the universe has a way of balancing the scales. Just as we were reaching new heights, fate decided to throw another curveball. But this time it wasn't a storm or a bill. It was a discovery Malik made in his school's biology lab that would change the trajectory of our lives and ultimately bring the past crashing back into our present. He came home one afternoon, his backpack heavy, a strange expression on his face. He didn't say hello. He walked straight to the kitchen where I was reviewing contracts. "Mom," he said, placing a folder on the table, "I need to show you something about my genetics, and I think you need to call Lucas." I looked at the folder. It was labeled simply "the donor." I didn't know it then, but the boy I had saved from the storm was about to save me, and the secrets locked in his DNA were far more valuable and far more dangerous than any medical device I could ever sell. By the time Malik turned 12, I had mastered the art of becoming invisible in plain sight. My bank accounts were growing with the steady rhythm of a healthy heart, but my public persona remained frozen in a perpetual state of struggle. I realized early on that in a family like mine, success was not celebrated. It was devoured. If they knew I had money, the guilt trips would start, the sudden emergencies would multiply, and worst of all, word would get back to Jasmine. So I built a firewall of silence. My social media strategy was a masterpiece of deception. While I was negotiating contracts with major hospital networks across the Southeast, my Facebook profile remained a shrine to poverty. I would post a picture of a flat tire I found on Google Images with the caption, "Car broke down again. Pray for me." The comments would fill with generic prayers from aunts and cousins, but no one offered a ride. No one offered a loan. And that was exactly how I wanted it. When we took vacations, we did not check in at the airport. We went to private islands in the Caribbean where the sand was white as sugar, but I posted old photos of my backyard with the caption, "Staycation again," making the best of it. The family group chat, which usually buzzed with gossip, went silent whenever I typed. They viewed me as the sinking ship, the poor relation who was stuck raising a sick child. They pitied me, and their pity was my greatest camouflage. In reality, the basement apartment was a distant memory. Lucas and I had formed an LLC to protect our privacy, and purchased a 4-bedroom colonial in Buckhead. It was a beautiful home tucked away behind oak trees with a library for Malik, and a garden where I could finally breathe. But we never invited family over. To them, we still lived in a rental on the bad side of town. Malik thrived in this secret garden. He entered one of the most prestigious private schools in Georgia. I remember the day we toured the campus. The headmaster looked at my simple attire and Malik's quiet demeanor with a hint of skepticism, until Malik spotted a complex DNA model in the science hallway and casually pointed out a structural error in the double helix representation. By the time we left, they were offering him a scholarship. I accepted it to keep up appearances, but I donated the equivalent amount anonymously to the school's science fund every year. And then there was Lucas. He did not propose with a flash mob or a skywriter. He did it on a Tuesday night over takeout containers of Thai food in our new granite kitchen. He slid a folder across the island counter. Inside were adoption papers. "I do not want to be his lawyer anymore, Nia," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I want to be his dad, on paper, in real life, in every way that matters." I looked at the ring sitting on top of the documents. It was simple, elegant, and real, just like him. We got married at the courthouse, no guests. Just Malik standing between us holding the rings. Afterward, we went to the aquarium. It was the happiest day of my life. Malik started calling him Dad without anyone asking him to. It was natural. Lucas was the one who taught him to tie a tie. Lucas was the one who cheered the loudest at the science fairs. Biology made Jasmine a mother, but love made us a family. However, the ghost of my sister was never truly gone. She haunted us through the blue light of smartphone screens. Jasmine had blocked me on calls, but she kept me unblocked on social media and messaging apps. She needed an audience. She needed someone to witness her ascent, and she specifically needed me, the failure, to envy her success. Every few months, my phone would ping with a direct message from her. Living the dream in Paris, she would write, attaching a photo of herself, holding a shopping bag from a high-end luxury brand. The Eiffel Tower would be sparkling in the background. Or she would send a video of a waiter pouring vintage champagne. "Hope you and the kid are managing," she would text. "Maybe one day you can afford a trip like this. But do not worry, I am drinking enough for both of us." I never replied. I never gave her the satisfaction of an angry outburst or a jealous plea. I simply looked at the photos with a cold, detached amusement. The irony was delicious. She was bragging about spending money on brands that I was now investing in. When she sent a photo of a new designer handbag, I checked my stock portfolio. I owned shares in the parent company of that designer. Her vanity was literally paying my dividends. She was a consumer drowning in debt to look rich. I was an owner living modestly to become wealthy. One Christmas, she sent a package. It was the first time she had acknowledged Malik's existence in years. The box arrived with a London postmark. Inside, there was no card, no note of love, just a pile of used clothes. I pulled out a sweater. It was cashmere, but it was stained with what looked like red wine, and there was a small moth hole in the sleeve. These were leftovers, rejects, things she could not be bothered to throw away, so she threw them at us. Malik, now 12 years old and sharp as a tack, watched me unpack the box. He picked up the stained sweater and looked at it. "She thinks we are a charity bin," he said, his voice devoid of hurt, filled only with analysis. I started to get angry. I wanted to take a picture of our bank statement and send it to her. I wanted to scream that his college fund was already fully funded, that he owned more stocks than she probably did. But Lucas put a hand on my shoulder. "Fuel," he said softly. "Just fuel for the fire, Nia. Let her think she is winning. It will make the fall that much harder." He was right. I took the box of clothes to the fireplace in our living room. I struck a match. We watched the expensive stained cashmere curl and blacken in the flames. It was a ritual. We were burning her disrespect. We were keeping warm with the heat of her arrogance. As Malik entered his teenage years, the dynamic began to shift. He was no longer just a smart kid. He was becoming a force of nature. His health had stabilized thanks to the best specialists money could buy. He was tall, lankier than Lucas, with eyes that missed nothing. He stopped asking about his mother. He stopped looking for her in the crowds. He had replaced the void she left with equations and biological sequences. "Mom," he said to me one evening while working on his laptop. "I found her." I froze. "You found who?" "Jasmine," he said, "and Brad." I tracked their digital footprint. They are not in Paris anymore. They are in London, but they have moved 3 times in the last year. Downgrading each time. He turned the screen to face me. It was a forum for expats in London. There was a post from an account I recognized as Brad's, asking for advice on how to deal with creditors and visa extensions. "They are running out of money," Malik said, his face impassive. "Brad made some bad bets on cryptocurrency. And Jasmine, look at her recent posts." He pulled up her Instagram. To the untrained eye, it still looked glamorous. But I saw the cracks. The clothes were from last season. The champagne flute was empty in 3 different photos. The background was carefully cropped to hide a smaller, dingier apartment. "She is faking it," Malik said. "She is drowning Mom." I felt a chill run down my spine. I knew what happened when people like Jasmine started to drown. They didn't just sink. They looked for something to grab onto. They looked for a life raft. "She does not know about us, right?" I asked, sudden panic rising in my chest. "She does not know about the house, the company." Malik shook his head. "I scrubbed our data. As far as the internet is concerned, Nia Thompson is a mid-level manager at a call center, and Malik Thompson is a student at a public high school with average grades. I created a false digital trail for us. If she Googles us, she sees what we want her to see." I looked at my son. He was 14 years old, and he was protecting us with the skill of a CIA agent. "Good," I said. "Keep it that way. Because if she knows we have money, she will use you to get to it. But secrets are hard to keep forever, especially when you become successful." By year 10, Nia's MedTech Solutions was no longer a small player. We were disrupting the market. I was invited to speak at conferences. I declined them all. I sent Lucas to represent the company, or I did voice-only interviews. I was the phantom CEO. However, the pressure was building. Malik won the National Science Fair 2 years in a row. His project on synthetic kidney tissue regeneration was attracting attention from universities and biotech firms. We had to decline press coverage. We had to refuse photo ops. "It is unfair to you," I told Malik the night he won the state championship. "You deserve to be in the newspaper. You deserve the spotlight." Malik looked at me holding his trophy. He was 16 now, his voice deep and steady. I do not want the spotlight yet, he said. Not until I can control it. Besides, the best revenge is not showing them what I can do. It is showing them what they lost. Let her stay in the dark a little longer. We were a fortress indeed, strong, united, and hidden. But the cracks in Jasmine's life were widening faster than we anticipated. And miles away across the ocean, the desperation we saw on that computer screen was turning into a plan. They were running out of options in Europe. The visa issues were real, the debts were real, and they had a new reason to return to America. A reason named Tyler. I did not know about Tyler yet. I did not know that while I was raising her son to be a king, she was raising another son to be a spare part. The calm years were ending. The storm was gathering again, but this time it wasn't bringing rain. It was bringing a hurricane of entitlement. And we were about to find out if our fortress was strong enough to withstand the return of the woman who gave birth to our brilliance, only to throw it away for fool's gold. I poured a glass of wine in my beautiful kitchen, unaware that the phone call that would shatter our peace was only a few days away. While I was busy building a fortress in Atlanta, putting down roots that went deep into the soil of stability and hard work, my sister Jasmine was watching her castle in the sky turn into vapor. We often imagine that the people who hurt us are out there living perfectly happy lives, drinking champagne and laughing at our misery. But the universe has a very specific way of balancing the ledger. It does not always happen quickly, but when the bill comes due, it includes interest. Across the Atlantic Ocean, the fairy tale Jasmine had abandoned her son for was rotting from the inside out. They were no longer in Paris or Monaco. They had moved to London, chasing a prestige they could no longer afford. The year was marked by gray skies and even grayer financial statements. Brad, the man who had honked his Porsche horn with such arrogance 17 years ago, was now sitting in a cramped rented flat in South Kensington. He was staring at a computer screen that was bleeding red ink. The handsome, wealthy real estate developer Jasmine had run away with was gone. In his place sat a man aged by greed and bad decisions. Brad had pivoted from physical real estate to the volatile world of cryptocurrency and virtual land speculation. He had bet everything on digital coins that were supposed to revolutionize the future. Instead, they had crashed, taking the last of his family trust fund with them. Jasmine walked into the room, tossing a shopping bag onto the sofa. The bag was from a high-end boutique, but inside was only a scarf, the cheapest item in the store. She needed the bag more than the item. She needed to walk down the street and have people see the logo. It was her armor. "You bought something," Brad snapped, not looking away from the screen. "Jasmine, our credit cards are maxed out. I told you not to spend a single pound until the market rebounds." Jasmine lit a cigarette, a habit she had picked up to curb her appetite because food was expensive and staying thin was her only currency left. "It is just a scarf, Brad," she said, her voice tight, with a frustration she refused to acknowledge. "And do not talk to me about money. You said this investment was a sure thing. You said we would be buying a villa in Tuscany by Christmas. Instead, we are living in a flat that smells like damp wool, and I have to dodge the landlady every time I leave the building." She walked to the window and looked out at the drizzling London rain. She hated it here. She missed the sun. She missed the way people used to look at her when she was on the arm of a rich man. Now Brad looked disheveled, and she looked tired. The Botox was wearing off, and she couldn't afford a refill. "We just need to hold on," Brad muttered, rubbing his temples. "It will go back up. It has to. Or maybe I can call my father again." "Your father told you to lose his number last time," Jasmine reminded him cruelly. "He said he was done bailing out a 40-year-old failure." Brad spun around in his chair, his face red. "At least I am trying, Jasmine. What do? You spend, you drink, you sit around waiting to be worshipped, you bring nothing to this table. Maybe if you got a job we would not be in this mess." "A job," she scoffed as if he had suggested she eat out of a garbage can. "I am Jasmine Thompson. I do not work. I inspire. I elevate. That is what I do." While they bickered in their shrinking world, the true tragedy was unfolding in the next room. Their son Tyler was lying on his bed staring at the ceiling. Tyler was 10 years old. He was the child Jasmine had actually wanted. He was light-skinned with curly hair and Brad's blue eyes. He was the trophy she had always dreamed of showing off. But Tyler was not the vibrant, energetic child she posted about on Instagram. He was constantly tired. His skin had a pale, waxy undertone that makeup couldn't hide. He bruised if you looked at him wrong. Jasmine told everyone he was just artistic and sensitive, preferring to stay indoors. She dragged him to photo shoots, forcing him to smile, ignoring the dark circles under his eyes. That afternoon, the argument in the living room was interrupted by a heavy thud. Jasmine and Brad froze. They ran to Tyler's room. They found their golden child on the floor, unconscious. The ambulance ride was a blur of panic, not because they feared for his life, but because they feared the cost. They didn't have private health insurance anymore. They were at the mercy of the public system, waiting in a crowded hallway for hours. Jasmine sat there, clutching her designer bag, looking at the other patients with disdain, refusing to accept that she was now one of them. When the doctor finally came out, he didn't look at their clothes or their heirs. He looked at the clipboard with a grave expression. "Mr. and Mrs. Hayes," the doctor said, "we have run some tests. Tyler's kidneys are failing." Jasmine blinked. "What do you mean, failing? He is 10. He just needs some vitamins, maybe some iron." "This is end-stage renal failure," the doctor corrected her, his voice stern. "It appears to be a genetic condition, likely polycystic kidney disease, that has aggressive onset in children. His creatinine levels are critical. He needs dialysis immediately, but that is not a permanent solution. He needs a transplant." Jasmine felt the room spin. A transplant. That sounded expensive. That sounded messy. "Okay," she said, trying to regain her composure. "So we get him a kidney. Brad can give him one, or me. We are his parents." The doctor shook his head. "We have already screened your blood types from the admission panel. Mr. Hayes, you have a marker that suggests you are the carrier of the gene, even if it is dormant in you. We cannot use an organ that carries the disease. And you, Mrs. Hayes, your blood type is incompatible with Tyler's. He has a rare antigen combination. So put him on the list," Brad demanded. "We are American citizens. We can fly back. Get him on the top of the list in the States." The waiting list for a pediatric kidney match with his specific profile is approximately 5 to 7 years. The doctor said, delivering the death sentence with professional calm. Without a living donor match, the prognosis is not good. Dialysis is hard on a child's body. Most do not thrive. Jasmine looked at Tyler lying in the hospital bed, hooked up to machines. This was her masterpiece, her perfect son. He was supposed to be her redemption, the proof that she had made the right choice leaving Atlanta. Now he was broken. They walked out of the hospital into the cold night air. Brad was crying actual tears of fear for his son, but Jasmine was dry-eyed. Her mind was racing not with grief but with calculation. 5 years, Brad sobbed. "He does not have 5 years, Jasmine. We killed him. My genes killed him." Jasmine lit another cigarette, ignoring the no smoking sign. She watched the smoke curl into the London fog. She was thinking about biology. She was thinking about assets. When you run out of money, you check the couch cushions for loose change. When you run out of options, you check your past for loose ends. "Brad," she said, her voice cutting through his sobs. "Stop crying. You look pathetic." "How can you be so cold?" he shouted. "Our son is dying." "He is not going to die," Jasmine said, taking a long drag. "We just need a donor, a blood relative. Someone who shares half of my DNA but none of your defective genes." Brad looked at her confused. "You said you were an only child. You said your parents were dead." "I lied," she said simply. "I have a sister I left in Atlanta." "So what?" Brad asked. "You think your sister is going to give a kidney to the nephew she has never met, after you abandoned her?" "No," Jasmine said, a slow, predatory smile spreading across her face. "Nia would never help me. She hates me. But Nia is not the donor I am thinking of. She threw the cigarette on the ground and crushed it with her expensive heel. I have another son, Brad. Brad stopped walking. He stared at her as if she had grown a second head. You have what, he whispered. I have a son, she repeated, testing the words. I left him with Nia 17 years ago. His name is Malik. He was sick when I left him some asthma nonsense. But if he is still alive, he would be 25 now. He is Tyler's half-brother. They share a mother. But Malik does not have your bad genes. Brad looked horrified. You abandoned a child. You never told me. You didn't want baggage, remember, she snapped. I did it for us. I did it for this life. And now it turns out I made a deposit in the bank of genetics that we need to withdraw. But you said he was sick, Brad stammered. Asthma is lungs, Brad, not kidneys. Jasmine said, her eyes gleaming with a manic hope. His kidneys are probably fine. He is young, he is family. She pulled out her phone. She opened the Photos app and scrolled past the pictures of Tyler, past the pictures of handbags, all the way back to a saved screenshot she had taken years ago from a cousin's Facebook page. It was a blurry photo of a teenage boy winning a science fair. He was tall, thin, and looked nothing like Tyler. He is the spare, Jasmine whispered. We have the heir, and now we need the spare. But we are broke, Jasmine, Brad said, his voice trembling. How do we even get back to Atlanta? How do we find him? We sell the rest of the jewelry, she said. We sell the car. We go back to America not as failures, but as tragic parents trying to save our child. Americans love a sob story. We will go to Nia. We will cry. We will say we made mistakes. We will say Tyler is an innocent angel. Nia is weak. She always was. She has a bleeding heart. If I show up with a dying child, she will open the door. And once we are in, she continued, her mind already plotting the chess moves, we get access to Malik. We guilt him. We manipulate him. We tell him it is his duty to save his little brother. He probably grew up poor and desperate. If we offer him a little money, or even just some attention from his long-lost mother, he will lay down on that operating table and give us whatever we want. Brad looked at his wife. For the first time he saw the monster beneath the makeup. But he was a desperate father, and monsters get things done. Do it, he said softly. Jasmine dialed the airline. As she waited on hold, she looked at her reflection in the hospital window. She didn't look old anymore. She looked energized. She had a mission. Nia thought she had won. She thought she had taken the trash out 17 years ago. But Jasmine knew something Nia didn't. Trash always finds its way back to the curb. Get ready, little sister, Jasmine whispered to the glass. I am coming home, and I am coming to collect what is mine. They booked one-way tickets to Atlanta, economy class. It was a humiliation they would endure for the prize that awaited them: a fresh organ, a second chance, and a way to survive. They had no idea that the poor, desperate boy they were coming to harvest was now a man who could buy and sell them 10 times over. They had no idea they were flying straight into the jaws of a lion who had been sharpening his teeth for 17 years. The vibration of my phone on the marble countertop sounded like a warning shot. It was a Tuesday evening, and the Atlanta sunset was casting long golden shadows across my kitchen. I was reviewing the blueprints for the new rehabilitation wing we were breaking ground on next month. Life was peaceful. Life was orderly. And then the screen lit up with a name I had not seen in 17 years. Jasmine. I stared at it. My heart did not race with fear, nor did it flutter with excitement. It beat with the slow, heavy thud of a war drum. I looked at Lucas, who was chopping vegetables at the island. He saw the name and froze the knife hovering over a bell pepper. Answer it, he said softly. We are ready. I picked up the phone and swiped the green icon. I did not say hello. I just listened. Nia. The voice on the other end was unmistakable. It had the same smoky, condescending drawl, but there was a new roughness to the edges, a tremor of desperation masked by arrogance. Pick up the phone, Nia. I know you are there. I am here, Jasmine. I said, keeping my voice flat and small. I channeled the version of myself she remembered. The broke waitress. The desperate aunt. Well, finally she huffed. I have been calling for minutes. Listen, write this down. Brad and I are flying into Hartsfield Jackson on Friday. American Airlines Flight 492. We land at 7 in the evening. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't ask if Malik was alive. She just gave orders. You are coming to Atlanta? I asked, feigning surprise. I thought you were in London. Or was it Monaco? Plans change, she said dismissively. Europe is boring this time of year, and besides, we decided it is time for a family reunion. We need you to pick us up and prepare the guest room. We will be staying with you until we find a suitable estate. Brad is very particular about thread counts, so make sure the sheets are clean. I almost laughed out loud. A suitable estate. Malik's intel told me they had been evicted from their London flat and had sold Jasmine's engagement ring to buy the plane tickets. They were homeless, but she was demanding high thread counts. I do not have much space, Jasmine, I stammered, playing the part. I live in a small house. It is not what you are used to. Oh, stop whining, she snapped. We are family. We will make do. Just have dinner ready when we get there. And Naya, do not embarrass me with that old car of yours. If you have to rent something decent, do it. I will reimburse you later. She hung up without saying goodbye. I lowered the phone and looked at Lucas. A slow smile spread across my face. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a hunter who just watched the prey walk into the cage and lock the door from the inside. She wants a room, I said to Lucas. She wants us to pick her up. She wants a family reunion. Lucas wiped his hands on a towel and leaned against the counter. So where are we putting them? He asked. The guest wing here is too nice. If she sees this house, she will never leave. She will sue you for half of it by Monday morning. I know, I said, walking over to the drawer where I kept the keys to our various properties. I dug past the keys to the lake house and the rental condos until I found a rusty key ring with a single jagged key. I held it up. It caught the light, looking grim and uninviting. We are taking them to the Oak Street property, I said. Lucas raised an eyebrow. The tear down. Nia, that place is condemned. The roof leaks. There is no central heating. We are scheduling the demolition crew for next month to clear the lot for the new warehouse. Exactly, I said. It is perfect. The Oak Street house was a relic from a property bundle I had bought 6 months ago. It was a rotting bungalow in a neighborhood that had seen better days. It had peeling lead paint, a porch that sagged like a frowning mouth, and a plumbing system that groaned like a dying beast. It was the perfect stage for my little play. For the next 3 days, I prepared. I did not prepare a feast. I prepared a lie. I went to the thrift store and bought cheap curtains to hang over the grimy windows. I bought a lumpy mattress from a discount outlet and threw it on the floor of the second bedroom. I went to our beautiful, pristine pantry and packed a box of generic canned beans, instant noodles, and powdered milk. I took these props to the Oak Street house and staged the scene. I placed photos of Malik and me from 10 years ago on the mantel photos, where we looked young and struggling. I scattered unpaid bills on the kitchen table. I unscrewed a few light bulbs so the hallway would be dim and flickering. I wanted to give Jasmine exactly what she expected. She needed to believe I was a failure. If she thought I was poor, her guard would be down. She would reveal her true colors. I wanted to see if there was a single ounce of humility left in her body. I wanted to see if she would help her struggling sister, or if she would just complain about the accommodations. Friday arrived with a gray, overcast sky. I left my Mercedes G-Wagon in the garage. Instead, I drove the company's old delivery van, a dented Ford with a rattling muffler and a faded logo on the side that I had partially scraped off. I wore a pair of jeans I had bought at Walmart and a t-shirt with a small stain on the collar. I tied my hair back in a messy bun and wore no makeup. I looked tired. I looked defeated. I looked like the Nia she wanted to see. I waited at the international terminal arrival curb. When the automatic door slid open, I spotted them immediately. They looked like a caricature of wealth. Jasmine was wearing a fur coat that looked moth-eaten under the harsh streetlights. She was dragging 2 Louis Vuitton suitcases that were scuffed and battered. Brad walked behind her, pushing a luggage cart with more bags. He looked thinner, his face gaunt and pale. And then I saw the boy. Tyler walked behind them, shoulders slumped. He was 10 years old, but he looked smaller. His skin had a yellowish-gray tint that I recognized instantly from my years in the medical field. Renal failure. The poor child looked exhausted, dark circles bruised under his eyes. He was not carrying any bags. He was just carrying the weight of his parents' bad decisions. Jasmine spotted me leaning against the dented van. Her face fell. She stopped in the middle of the crosswalk, causing a taxi to honk at her. She marched over her heels, clicking on the asphalt. "Naya," she said, looking at the van with horror. "What is this? I told you to rent a car." "I couldn't afford a rental, Jasmine," I said, keeping my head down. "This is my work van. It runs. That is what matters." She let out a dramatic sigh, looking around to see if anyone was watching. "God, you are useless. 17 years and you are still driving junk. Open the trunk, or the doors, whatever this thing has." She didn't hug me. She didn't introduce me to my nephew Tyler. She just pointed at the back of the van. Brad heaved the heavy suitcases into the back, grunting with effort. He barely looked at me. He just muttered a hello and climbed into the back seat next to Tyler. Jasmine sat in the front passenger seat. She pulled a bottle of sanitizer from her purse and aggressively wiped down the dashboard and the door handle before touching anything. So she said as I pulled into traffic, "You are still living in the same area." "No," I lied. "We moved. It is cheaper." "Cheaper," she scoffed. "I didn't think it could get cheaper than the West End. Brad, look at this traffic. America is so chaotic. In London, everything is so much more civilized." Brad grunted from the back. I looked in the rearview mirror. Tyler was staring out the window, his eyes vacant. "He looks sick, Jasmine," I said softly. "Your son, is he okay?" Jasmine stiffened. "He is fine, just jet lag. And he is a sensitive boy, European constitution. He is not used to this dirty American air." We drove for 40 minutes. I intentionally took the route that went past the homeless encampments and the abandoned strip malls. I wanted to lower their expectations with every mile. When I finally turned onto Oak Street, the sun had set. The streetlights were flickering. I pulled into the cracked driveway of the rotting bungalow. "We are here," I said. Jasmine looked out the window. Her mouth fell open. "This is it," she whispered. "This is where you live. It is a roof over our heads," I said defensively. "Times have been hard, Jasmine. The economy, medical bills, you know how it is." "I don't know how it is," she snapped. "I have never lived in a shack. Brad, do not bring the bags in yet. I need to inspect it." She opened the door and stepped onto the porch. A floorboard creaked ominously under her heel. I unlocked the front door, which stuck and required a hard shove to open. The smell of must and old dust hit us. I had turned the heat off so it was chilly inside. Jasmine walked into the living room. She looked at the peeling wallpaper. She looked at the stained carpet. She looked at the single dim bulb hanging from the ceiling. "This is unacceptable," she declared, turning to me with fury in her eyes. "I cannot stay here. Tyler cannot stay here. He is delicate. This place is a health hazard." "It is all I have," I said, standing in the middle of the room with my hands clasped. "If you have money, Jasmine, there is a Hilton downtown. It is $300 a night." She froze. The mention of money shut her up instantly. She didn't have $300. She probably didn't have 30. "Fine," she hissed. "We will stay. For one night. Tomorrow, Brad is going to call his connections and we will move somewhere suitable." She walked past me into the kitchen, wrinkling her nose at the generic beans on the counter. "Where is the boy?" she asked suddenly. "Malik. Is he here?" "He is at work," I said. He works double shifts at the warehouse. He will be home late. Good, she said. I do not want to see him tonight. I have a headache. Which room is ours? I pointed to the bedroom with the lumpy mattress. That one. Tyler can take the couch. She looked at the couch. It was sagging and covered in a scratchy plaid blanket. My son is not sleeping on a couch, she said. He will sleep with us. She marched into the bedroom and slammed the door. I heard her screaming at Brad through the thin walls. I can't believe she lives like this. It is disgusting. We have to get that kidney and get out of here. I stood in the dark hallway listening. Get that kidney. There it was. The confirmation. They weren't here for a reunion. They were here for a harvest. I walked over to the couch where Tyler was sitting. He hadn't moved. He looked small and terrified. Are you hungry? I asked him gently. He looked up at me. His eyes were blue like his father's, but they held a sadness that belonged to an old man. Do you have any water? He whispered. My throat hurts. I went to the kitchen and poured him a glass of bottled water I had hidden in the back of the fridge. I handed it to him. Thank you, he said. He was polite. He was gentle. He was nothing like his parents. My heart broke a little for him. He was the innocent pawn in their twisted game. I am your Aunt Nia, I told him. I know, he said. Mom talks about you sometimes. What does she say? I asked. She says you are the reason we are poor, he said simply. She says you stole her luck. I almost laughed. Stole her luck. No, sister, I just picked up the work you dropped. I sat in the armchair across from him until he fell asleep sitting up. Then I laid him down and covered him with the blanket. I went out to the porch and sat on the rotting steps. I pulled out my real phone, the latest iPhone, which I had kept on silent in my pocket. I texted Lucas. The eagle has landed. The trap is set. They are worse than we thought. Lucas texted back immediately. Malik is asking when he can meet them. Tell him to wait, I typed. Let them simmer in the squalor for a day. Let them get desperate. I want them to beg. And then I want to bring them to the gala on Saturday. The gala. It was the annual fundraiser for the hospital wing we were funding. It was the event of the season. Everyone who was anyone in Atlanta would be there. It was the perfect stage for the final act. I looked back at the house. I could hear Jasmine still complaining, her voice a shrill drone in the night. She was sleeping on a lumpy mattress in a condemned house, thinking she was better than me. Sleep tight, sister, I whispered into the darkness, because when you wake up, the nightmare really begins. And this time you can't run away to Paris. This time you are in my world. And in my world, we pay our debts. The front door groaned as I pushed it open, a sound that seemed to mimic the complaints already forming on Jasmine's lips. The air inside the house was stale, heavy with the scent of damp wood and years of neglect. It was the smell of poverty, a smell I remembered all too well, and one that Jasmine had spent half a lifetime running from. Brad stepped over the threshold first, carrying 2 of the suitcases. He stopped immediately, his nose wrinkling as if he had stepped into a sewer. He dropped the bags on the dusty floor with a loud thud, kicking up a small cloud of gray particles. Jesus, he muttered, pulling a handkerchief from his pocket and covering his nose and mouth. It smells like wet dog and bad decisions in here. Is this mold? I think I can taste the spores. It is just an old house, Brad, I said, closing the door behind them to shut out the streetlights. We do our best to keep it clean, but the ventilation is not great. He looked around the dim living room, taking in the mismatched furniture, the peeling wallpaper that hung in strips like dead skin, and the single flickering bulb overhead. He turned his gaze to me, and for the first time I saw the look I had been expecting. It was not just disgust. It was a sneer of superiority mixed with that specific brand of pity that feels like a slap. I suppose I should not be surprised, Brad said, wiping his hands on his pants, as if just being in the room had dirtied him. You know, Jasmine always said you lacked ambition, Nia. But I did not realize it was this bad. I mean, how do you even live like this? Is it a cultural thing? Being comfortable with less. There it was, the microaggression, the subtle implication that people who looked like me were naturally inclined to squalor. I felt the anger flare in my chest, hot and sharp, but I swallowed it down. I needed them to feel superior. I needed them to feel safe in their arrogance. "We work hard, Brad," I said, keeping my voice low and humble. "But the economy has not been kind to small businesses." Lucas stepped out from the kitchen then. I had texted him to be there posing as the tired, beaten-down husband. He was wearing a flannel shirt with a hole in the elbow and jeans covered in grease stains. He held a box of cheap store-brand pizza. "Dinner is ready," Lucas said, offering a weary smile. "It is not much, but it is hot." Brad looked at Lucas, then at me, then back at Lucas. The judgment was palpable. Here was a white man who in Brad's eyes had failed by associating with this life. "You must be the husband," Brad said, not offering his hand. "Lucas, right. Jasmine told me you were a lawyer. What happened? Did you get disbarred? Or do you just represent people who pay in chickens?" "I work in public defense," Lucas said calmly, setting the pizza on the scarred coffee table. "It is honest work." "Honest?" Brad scoffed. "Honest does not pay for central heating, apparently. It is freezing in here." While Brad stood in the corner refusing to sit on the furniture for fear of contamination, Jasmine began her performance. She had been quiet since entering, her eyes scanning the room, landing on the photos on the mantel. They were old photos I had planted, me looking tired, Malik looking frail in a hospital bed. She walked over to the mantel and picked up a photo of Malik. She stared at it for a long moment, and then, as if a director had yelled action, her shoulders began to shake. "Oh God," she choked out. "My baby. Look at him." She turned to face me, tears streaming down her cheeks. They were impressive tears. If I didn't know her, I might have been moved. "Nia, you have to understand," she sobbed, clutching the photo to her chest. "I did not want to leave. I was sick. It was the postpartum depression. It was a dark fog. I didn't know what I was doing. I thought if I left he would have a better chance. I thought I was the poison." I watched her, my face impassive. Postpartum depression. That was the angle. She was rewriting history, turning her cold-blooded abandonment into a medical tragedy. She conveniently forgot the part where she stole the money for his medicine. She forgot the part where she called him baggage. "You were gone for 17 years, Jasmine," I said softly. The fog lasted a long time. I was ashamed she cried, walking over and grabbing my hands. Her grip was tight, desperate. I wanted to come back every single day, but I was scared you would hate me, and then time just passed, and I just wanted to be worthy of him. And now look at us. We lost everything trying to get back here. Karma, I guess. But I am here now. I want to make it right." She looked at me with wide, pleading eyes. It was a masterclass in manipulation. She was trying to bond with me to create a shared narrative of suffering so that I would lower my defenses. I pulled my hands away gently. "He is not a baby anymore, Jasmine. He is a grown man." "That is what I want to talk about," she said, wiping her eyes and instantly shifting gears. The tears stopped as quickly as they had started. Her voice became sharper, more probing. "How is he, Nia? Really? I mean, in that photo he looks so sick. Did he ever grow out of the asthma? Is he strong?" I exchanged a quick glance with Lucas. Here came the fishing expedition. "He had a hard time growing up," I said, choosing my words carefully. "Lots of hospitals, lots of nights where we didn't think he would make it." Brad stepped forward, suddenly interested. "But he made it right," Brad asked, his eyes narrowing. "I mean physically. Is he healthy now? Does he have any chronic issues? Diabetes? Heart trouble? Anything that would compromise his system?" It was such a strange question for a long-lost uncle to ask. Not, "What is he studying or does he have a girlfriend?" But is his system compromised? He is strong. I lied, leaning into the trap. He runs marathons now. He takes vitamins. He is probably the healthiest person in this family. He has never touched alcohol or cigarettes. His body is pristine. I saw the look that passed between Jasmine and Brad. It was a look of pure, unadulterated hunger. It was the look of a vampire spotting a fresh vein. Jasmine actually licked her lips. "That is wonderful," she breathed. "Just wonderful. He is a survivor, just like his mother." She sat down on the lumpy couch next to Tyler, who had been watching the whole scene with wide, fearful eyes. She patted Tyler's knee, but her eyes were still fixed on me. "We need to see him, Nia. Tomorrow. It is urgent." "He works long hours," I said. "He works at a warehouse, lifting heavy boxes. He is very tired when he gets home." "We will go to him," Brad insisted. "Where is this warehouse? We can take a cab." "No," I said firmly. "You cannot just show up at his job. He does not even know you are here. If you startle him, he might walk away. You have to do this my way." I paused, letting the silence stretch in the cold room. I wanted them to feel the desperation. I wanted them to feel that they were so close to their prize, yet still at my mercy. "There is an event on Saturday," I said. "A charity gala. The company Malik works for bought a table for their employees. He is allowed to bring guests. He invited Lucas and me, but, well, we do not have anything to wear to a fancy place like that." Jasmine's eyes lit up. A gala. That was her language. That was her arena. "A gala," she repeated. "That is perfect. We can surprise him there. It is public. He cannot make a scene. And we can dress up. We can show him that we are respectable." "But we do not have tickets for you," Lucas interjected, playing his part perfectly. "And like Nia said, we do not fit in at those places." "Oh, please," Jasmine scoffed, waving her hand. "I can talk my way into anything. And as for fitting in, do not worry about us. We still have a few decent clothes left in these suitcases. We will handle the entrance. You just get us to the door." She stood up, energized by the prospect. The sobbing mother act was gone. The schemer was back. "It is settled then," she declared. "Saturday night, we reunite the family, we get Malik back, and then, well, then we can discuss the future." She looked down at Tyler. "Did you hear that, baby?" she whispered to him, but loud enough for me to hear. "You are going to meet your big brother. He is going to help you. He is going to make everything better." Tyler looked up, his voice trembling. "Does he know about my kidneys, Mom?" Jasmine squeezed his shoulder hard, silencing him. "He will, sweetie. He will. And he will love you so much that he will want to share everything with you. That is what brothers do." I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the drafty house. She was already programming the narrative. She was going to ambush Malik, guilt-trip him with a dying child, and extract an organ before he could even say hello. I stood up. "I am going to bed," I said. "You guys can have the bedroom. Lucas and I will take the floor in the kitchen." "You are sleeping on the floor?" Brad asked, looking at the linoleum with disgust. "We are used to sacrifice," I said, looking him dead in the eye. I walked into the kitchen and laid out a blanket. Lucas joined me a moment later, turning off the flickering hall light. We lay there in the dark, listening to Jasmine and Brad whispering in the other room. They weren't whispering about gratitude. They were whispering about strategy. "He runs marathons," I heard Brad whisper. "That means his heart is strong too. The kidneys must be top tier." "He is the spare," Jasmine whispered back. "I told you. I made him for this." I reached out and squeezed Lucas's hand in the dark. My grip was iron. They thought they were the predators planning a feast. They had no idea they were the turkeys fattening themselves up for Thanksgiving. "Saturday," I whispered to Lucas. "Saturday," he whispered back. The trap was set, the bait was taken. Now all we had to do was wait for the curtain to rise. The morning sun struggled to push through the grime on the windows of the Oak Street house, casting long, depressing shadows across the stained carpet. I had left early taking the rattling van, and Lucas ostensibly to go to our low-wage jobs. I left them with a box of stale donuts and a note that said we would be back late. But I did not go to work. I drove 3 blocks away, parked the van, and switched into my Mercedes that was waiting in a private garage. Then I pulled up the security feed on my phone. I had installed hidden cameras in the living room and the kitchen, not to spy on their privacy, but to witness their betrayal. I needed to know exactly what they would do when they thought no one was watching. On the screen, I watched Jasmine pacing the small living room like a caged tiger. She was wearing her silk robe, the hem dragging on the dusty floor, a stark contrast to the peeling wallpaper. Brad was still snoring in the bedroom, but Jasmine was awake and she was agitated. She kicked the leg of the wobbly coffee table. She opened the fridge and stared at the generic water bottles with disgust. Then her eyes landed on the old writing desk in the corner. It was a piece of junk I had bought at a yard sale, but I had intentionally locked the top drawer. I watched a slow, predatory smile spread across her face. A locked drawer in a house full of nothing implies that there is something worth hiding. She looked toward the bedroom to make sure Brad was still asleep. Then she pulled a bobby pin from her hair. I watched in fascination as my sister, the woman who claimed to be a high society socialite, picked the lock with the practiced ease of someone who had done this before. Perhaps she had learned a few things while dodging landlords in London. The lock clicked. She pulled the drawer open. Inside, I had placed a single manila envelope. It was the bait. Jasmine grabbed the envelope. Her hands were shaking. She probably expected to find cash, maybe a few $100s she could steal for a decent lunch. She ripped it open and dumped the contents onto the desk. There was no cash. Instead, 2 pieces of paper fluttered out. The first was a receipt. I zoomed in on the camera feed even though I knew exactly what it said. It was a receipt from Saks Fifth Avenue dated yesterday. Item emerald silk evening gown. Price $5,200. Payment method Visa. Ending in 9988. I watched Jasmine's face freeze. She blinked. She held the paper up to the light, checking if it was real. She read the numbers again. $5,000. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She looked around the rotting room at the water stains on the ceiling, and then back at the receipt. The cognitive dissonance was almost visible. How could a woman who served canned beans for dinner buy a dress that cost more than a used car? Then she picked up the second piece of paper. It was an invitation. Heavy cardstock, gold-embossed lettering, smelling faintly of expensive perfume. The Biogen Annual Charity Gala, Saturday night, 7:00 p.m. The Grand Ballroom, St. Regis Hotel. Admit to VIP table. Jasmine dropped the papers as if they were on fire. The shock on her face was quickly replaced by a red-hot fury. She didn't look confused anymore. She looked murderous. "Brad!" she screamed. She stormed into the bedroom. I switched the camera feed to the bedroom view. Brad jolted awake, looking terrified. "What? Is the house on fire?" he stammered. "She is lying to us!" Jasmine shrieked, throwing the crumpled receipt at his face. "Look at this. Look at it." Brad squinted at the paper, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Address," he muttered. $5,000. Wait. Naya bought this. Yesterday, Jasmine paced the room, her hands flying in the air. She bought it yesterday. She told us she was broke. She told us she couldn't afford a rental car. She made us sleep on a mattress that smells like mildew. And meanwhile, she is dropping $5,000 on a dress. Brad sat up, fully awake now. The implications were sinking in. "Where did she get that kind of money?" he asked. "She is a thief," Jasmine declared. "Or a liar. Or both. Maybe she is running some kind of scam. Maybe she stole money from Mom and Dad's estate years ago and hid it. Or maybe she is doing something illegal. Nobody makes that kind of money working at a warehouse." She snatched the invitation from the bed. "And look at this. A VIP table at the Biogen Gala. She told us she couldn't go because she had nothing to wear. She looked me in the eye and lied to my face. She is going tonight. She is going to wear this $5,000 dress and eat caviar while we rot in this dump. Brad's face hardened. The humiliation of the night before, the disgust at the house, it all curdled into rage. She is mocking us, he said quietly. She is playing games. She thinks she is smart, Jasmine hissed, walking to the mirror and staring at her reflection. She thinks she can hide her money from me. She thinks she can hoard resources while her own nephew is dying. That money could have paid for a private consultation for Tyler. That money could have gotten us a suite. She turned to Brad, her eyes blazing with a terrifying resolve. Get up, Brad. What are we going to do? He asked. Confront her when she gets home. No, Jasmine said, a cruel smile twisting her lips. We are not waiting for her to come home. We are going to the party. Brad looked at the invitation. But we are not on the list. I am Jasmine Thompson, she said, her voice dripping with arrogance. I do not need a list. We have the invitation right here. We are going to walk into that ballroom. We are going to find my lying sister in her expensive dress. And we are going to expose her. Expose her for what Brad asked. Having money. For abandoning her family, Jasmine improvised her mind, working fast. We will cause a scene. We will tell everyone that the woman wearing the emerald gown lets her dying nephew sleep on the floor. We will shame her. Rich people hate scandals, Brad. If we threaten to ruin her reputation in front of her boss and her friends, she will write us a check just to make us shut up. And Malik, Brad added. He will be there. Exactly, Jasmine said. We corner him. We bring Tyler. We make Tyler look as sick as possible. We put him right in front of Malik. We say, look at your brother. Look at what your selfishness is doing to him. We do not ask for the kidney in private anymore. We demand it in public. She ran to the suitcases and started tearing them open. She pulled out the few remaining designer items they had left. A tuxedo for Brad that was slightly frayed at the cuffs. A silver sequined gown for herself that she had worn to a casino opening 3 years ago. Get dressed, she commanded. Make sure Tyler wears his most worn-out clothes. I want him to look pathetic. I want him to look like Oliver Twist. I watched from my car, my heart pounding against my ribs. It was working. It was working better than I had dared to hope. They weren't just greedy, they were vindictive. They were planning to weaponize their own son's illness to blackmail me. I picked up my phone and called Lucas. They found the bait, I said. They are getting dressed. They are coming to the gala. Lucas laughed a short, sharp sound. So they are bringing a knife to a nuclear war, he said. Make sure security knows to let them in, I instructed. Do not stop them at the door. I want them inside. I want them in the middle of the ballroom. I want them to feel like they have won. Understood, Lucas said. The staff is prepped. The trap is open. I hung up and started the engine of my Mercedes. I had a spa appointment to get to. I had hair and makeup to be done. I had an emerald gown waiting for me. Back in the house, Jasmine was forcefully scrubbing Tyler's face, making sure he looked pale but presentable. Mom, I do not want to go. Tyler whimpered. I am tired. My back hurts. Shut up, Jasmine snapped, applying a layer of lipstick. You are doing this for your future. You want to get better, don't you? You want to live in a big house again. Yes, Tyler whispered. Then do exactly what I say. When you see your brother, you cry. You hold his hand. You beg. Do you understand me? Yes, Mom. I turned off the camera feed. I couldn't watch her use him like that anymore. It made my blood boil. But I needed that anger. I needed it to fuel what I was about to do. Jasmine thought she was going to expose me. She thought she was going to shame me into submission. She had no idea that she was walking onto a stage I had built into a spotlight I controlled to play a role she didn't even know she had been cast in. Tonight, the phantom CEO of Nia's MedTech Solutions would finally step into the light. And the sister who had been left in the rain 17 years ago was bringing the storm with her. I drove toward the city, the skyline of Atlanta glittering in the distance. The game was over. The execution was about to begin. The grand ballroom of the St. Regis Hotel was a galaxy of crystal and gold. Thousands of tiny lights reflected off the polished marble floors, and the air was thick with the scent of white lilies and expensive perfume. It was a world of hushed tones and polite laughter, a sanctuary for the elite of Atlanta, where problems were solved with checkbooks and reputations were guarded like diamonds. I stood near the center of the room holding a crystal flute of sparkling water. The emerald silk gown fit me like a second skin, the fabric cool against my back. Next to me, Lucas looked devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo, his hand resting reassuringly on the small of my back. We were speaking with Senator Davis and the Chief of Surgery from Grady Memorial, discussing the logistics of the new pediatric wing. But while my mouth was forming polite sentences about tax deductibles and community outreach, my eyes were fixed on the double mahogany doors at the far end of the room. I was not just a host tonight. I was a hunter waiting in a blind. At 7:15, the doors opened. I watched them enter. It was a scene straight out of a tragic comedy. Jasmine strode in first, wearing her silver sequined gown. From a distance it sparkled, but under the unforgiving high-definition lights of the ballroom, the flaws were visible. The sequins were missing in patches. The hem was dragged and gray. It was a dress from a different era, worn by a woman who was trying desperately to outrun time. Brad followed her, looking like a man marching to his execution. His tuxedo was ill-fitting, tight across the shoulders and loose at the waist, clearly rented or dug out of a forgotten trunk. He was sweating, his eyes darting around the room with a mixture of awe and terror. And trailing behind them like a ghost was Tyler. They had dressed him in a suit that was 2 sizes too big, emphasizing his frailty. His face was pale, his eyes wide and overwhelmed by the noise and the lights. Jasmine gripped his hand so tight his knuckles were white. She was not holding his hand for comfort, she was using him as a shield. I saw the exact moment the security team spotted them. I saw the head of security, a large man named Marcus, tap his earpiece and step forward. Jasmine lifted her chin, ready for a fight. She probably had a speech prepared about knowing the owner. But then Marcus caught my eye across the room. I gave a microscopic shake of my head. "Stand down. Let them in." Marcus stepped back, bowing slightly. Jasmine smirked. She thought she had intimidated him. She thought her fading aura of wealth still held power. She did not realize she was walking onto a stage where the trap door had already been unlatched. I sipped my water and waited. They moved through the crowd like a virus. People turned to stare, not with admiration but with confusion. The elite of Atlanta knew each other. They knew who belonged and who did not. And this trio, smelling of desperation and old mothballs, definitely did not belong. Jasmine ignored the stares. She was scanning the room, hunting. She was looking for a waitress. She was looking for a busboy. She was looking for the version of me she had created in her head. And then she saw me. I watched the recognition hit her like a physical blow. She stopped dead in her tracks near a towering ice sculpture. She blinked once, twice. She looked at the senator, laughing at my joke. She looked at the waiters circling us with trays of hors d'oeuvres. She looked at the emerald dress that she knew cost $5,000. Her reality fractured. I could see the gears turning in her head. The cognitive dissonance was violent. How could the sister living in the rotting house on Oak Street be the woman holding court in the center of the ballroom? It wasn't possible. Unless she had been played. The shock on her face turned into something ugly. It turned into a pure, molten rage. It was the rage of a narcissist who realizes the mirror has been broken. She didn't feel shame. She felt robbed. In her twisted mind, standing there in her tattered sequins, she believed that everything I had, the dress, the respect, the life, belonged to her. She grabbed a glass of champagne from a passing waiter's tray and downed it in one gulp. Then she grabbed another. Liquid courage. She turned to Brad and said something I couldn't hear, but I could read her lips. She stole it. She grabbed Tyler's hand and started pushing through the crowd. She wasn't walking anymore. She was charging. She shoved past the wife of a bank CEO, nearly knocking the woman over. She didn't apologize. Her eyes were locked on me. Lucas tightened his grip on my waist. "Here we go," he whispered. I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I just turned slightly to face the oncoming storm, my expression perfectly calm. Jasmine burst into our circle, panting slightly. Her hair was coming loose from its pin. Her lipstick was smeared. She looked deranged. "Nia," she screamed. The music didn't stop immediately, but the conversation did. A circle of silence expanded outward from us as people turned to watch the spectacle. Senator Davis looked at Jasmine with alarm, then at me. "Do you know this woman, Nia?" I opened my mouth to speak, but Jasmine cut me off. She stepped forward, pointing a shaking finger in my face. "Do not you dare act like you do not know me!" she shrieked, her voice cracking with hysteria. "I am her sister. I am her older sister." She spun around to address the crowd, spreading her arms wide, the silver sequins flashing aggressively. "You all think she is so perfect, don't you? You think she is some kind of saint. Well, let me tell you who Nia Thompson really is. She is a fraud. She is a liar. And she is a thief." A gasp rippled through the room. This was not the kind of entertainment the donors were used to. This was raw, messy drama. "Jasmine," I said, my voice low and controlled. "You are making a scene. You are damn right I am making a scene," she yelled, stepping closer, invading my personal space. "You invite yourself to this party wearing a $5,000 dress, drinking expensive wine, while your own family sleeps on the floor of a condemned house." She grabbed Tyler and shoved him forward. The poor boy stumbled, looking terrified. "Look at him," Jasmine commanded the room. "Look at my son. He is sick. He is dying. His kidneys are failing. And what does his Aunt Nia do? Does she help? Does she offer a dime? No. She hoards her money. She lies to us. She makes us live in squalor while she plays dress-up." She turned back to me, tears streaming down her face now. Real tears of frustration and envy. "You stole our inheritance, didn't you? That is how you paid for all this. You stole Mom and Dad's money while I was gone. You let my son suffer so you could look rich. You are a monster, Nia." Brad stepped up beside her, trying to look imposing, but mostly looking sweaty and uncomfortable. "We know about the dress, Nia," he said, his voice trembling. "We found the receipt. You have been playing us for fools." Jasmine laughed, a high manic sound. "Playing us. She has been starving us. I came back to America to save my son, and my own sister spit in my face." She looked around the room, making eye contact with the shocked guests. "She has a son too, you know. Malik. My son, actually. The one I left with her. I bet she treats him like a prince while she treats us like garbage." "Where is he, Nia? Where is my son?" She lunged at me, grabbing my arm. "Give him to me. I want to see him. I want to tell him what kind of person you really are. I want him to know that while he lives in luxury, his little brother is dying in a gutter because of you." Security started to move in. Marcus was halfway across the floor, his face grim. But I held up a hand. "Stop," I said. My voice was not loud, but it projected clearly across the silent ballroom. Jasmine let go of my arm, breathing heavily. She thought she had won. She thought she had shamed me. She thought that by creating a scandal I would pull out a checkbook just to make her stop. She stood there, chest heaving, waiting for me to crumble, waiting for me to apologize, waiting for me to beg her to be quiet. I looked at her. I looked at the smudged makeup, the desperate eyes, the sheer, unadulterated entitlement radiating off her like heat. I took a slow, deliberate sip of my water. I set the glass down on a passing waiter's tray. I smoothed the silk of my dress. "Are you finished?" I asked. Jasmine blinked. She had expected tears. She had expected anger. She had not expected boredom. "No, I am not finished," she sputtered. "I want my son. I want Malik. He is the only family I have left who is not a snake." "You want Malik," I repeated. Yes, she screamed. He will help us. He will save his brother. Unlike you. I looked at the clock on the wall. It was 7:30, right on schedule. I turned to the stage where the lights were beginning to dim. The microphone hummed to life. You want to see Malik, I said, turning back to Jasmine with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. You want to see the boy you left in a storm 17 years ago. You want to see the baggage you threw away. Well, sister, you are in luck, because he is about to come on stage. Jasmine looked confused. On stage? Why? Is he a waiter? Is he a musician? The spotlight hit the center of the stage, blindingly bright. A voice boomed over the speakers, deep and resonant. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the keynote speaker for tonight's gala, the founder of the new Pediatric Neuroscience Wing and the CEO of Biogen Industries, Dr. Malik Thompson. The doors to the side of the stage opened, and out walked a king. Jasmine's mouth fell open. Brad dropped his hand from her shoulder. The man walking across the stage was 6 feet 3 inches of power and grace. He was wearing a bespoke Tom Ford tuxedo that fit his broad shoulders perfectly. He moved with a confidence that sucked the air out of the room. He was handsome, healthy, and radiating success. He walked to the podium. He looked out at the crowd. He looked at me. And then his eyes drifted to the center of the room, to the woman in the tattered silver dress who looked like she had seen a ghost. Jasmine made a sound like a dying animal. It was a whimper of total, devastating comprehension. He wasn't a waiter. He wasn't a warehouse worker. He was the reason everyone was here, and he was looking right at her. The silence in the ballroom was absolute. It was not the silence of respect. It was the silence of a held breath, the kind that precedes a lightning strike. Jasmine stood in the center of the room, her chest heaving, her silver sequins catching the light like jagged shards of glass. She looked around defiantly, mistaking the shock on people's faces for submission. She thought she had won. She thought she had embarrassed me into compliance. "Bring him out," she demanded again, her voice echoing off the high, vaulted ceilings. "Bring out the warehouse worker. Let him see what you have done to his family." I did not speak. I simply gestured to the stage with my champagne glass. The lights in the ballroom dimmed, plunging the audience into a soft, dramatic twilight. A single powerful spotlight cut through the darkness, illuminating the center of the velvet-draped stage. The hum of the microphone system filled the room, deep and resonant. "Ladies and gentlemen," the voice of the master of ceremonies boomed, vibrating through the floorboards. "Please turn your attention to the stage. It is my distinct honor to introduce the man who made this evening possible. The visionary behind the new Pediatric Neuroscience Wing, the patent holder for the Thompson Artificial Kidney Protocol, and the CEO of Biogen Industries." Jasmine frowned. She looked at Brad, her lips moved, forming the word, "who?" She did not understand. She was waiting for a laborer in dirty overalls. She was waiting for a victim. "Please welcome," the MC continued, his voice rising in a crescendo. "Dr. Malik Johnson." The heavy velvet curtains parted. Jasmine's face went slack. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Beside her, Brad dropped the hand of his sick son, his eyes bulging as if he were witnessing a resurrection. The man who walked onto the stage was not the sickly 8-year-old boy they had left gasping for air on a dirty mattress. He was a titan. Malik stood 6 feet 3 inches tall. He moved with the predatory grace of a panther. He was wearing a midnight blue Tom Ford tuxedo that was tailored to within an inch of its life, emphasizing the breadth of his shoulders and the power in his frame. His skin glowed with health. His eyes, sharp and intelligent, scanned the room with the confidence of a man who owned everything the light touched. He walked to the podium, not with a shuffle, but with a stride that commanded attention. He placed his hands on the lectern. On his wrist, a platinum Patek Philippe watch glinted under the spotlight, worth more than Jasmine's entire life earnings. He leaned into the microphone. "Good evening, Atlanta," Malik said. His voice was a rich baritone, smooth as velvet and cold as ice. The room erupted in applause. The elite of the city, the senators, the doctors, the billionaires, they all clapped. They knew him. They respected him. Jasmine did not clap. She stood frozen in the middle of the room, a statue of disbelief. Her brain was trying to reconcile the narrative she had built with the reality standing before her. This was the spare child. This was the baggage. This was the asthma case she had thrown away. Malik looked down from the stage. He didn't smile. He didn't wave. He simply walked down the stairs to the ballroom floor. The crowd parted for him like the Red Sea. He walked straight toward us. Jasmine's paralysis broke. A desperate manic hope flooded her eyes. She fixed her hair. She straightened her tattered dress. She slapped a smile onto her face that looked more like a rictus of pain. "He is coming to me," she whispered to Brad. "He knows. He remembers. He is coming to his mother." She stepped forward, blocking his path. She spread her arms wide, ready to receive the embrace of the wealthy, powerful son she had always deserved. "Malik," she cried out, her voice trembling with a mixture of greed and theatrical emotion. "My baby. You look so—" She didn't finish the sentence. Malik did not stop. He did not slow down. He did not even blink. He walked past her. He walked past her as if she were a piece of furniture. He walked past her as if she were a ghost. The wind from his movement ruffled the sequins on her cheap dress. He didn't look at her face. He didn't acknowledge her existence. Jasmine turned her arms still open, hugging empty air. She watched, stunned, as he continued his path. He walked straight to me. The tension in the room was suffocating. Everyone was watching. Malik stopped in front of me. The coldness in his eyes vanished, replaced by a warmth that transformed his entire face. He smiled, a genuine boyish smile that I had fought 17 years to protect. He leaned down and wrapped his large arms around me, pulling me into a hug that smelled of expensive cologne and safety. "Hello, Mom," he said, his voice loud enough for the people nearby to hear. "I am sorry I am late." The board meeting ran long. I hugged him back, burying my face in his shoulder. I felt the vibration of his laughter against my chest. "It is okay, sweetie," I said. "You made quite an entrance." He pulled back and looked at Lucas. He reached out and shook Lucas's hand, then pulled him in for a half hug. "Hey, Dad," Malik said. "Nice tie." "Thanks," son, Lucas grinned. "You are looking sharp yourself." Jasmine made a noise. It was a strangled, high-pitched squeak. She stumbled toward us, her heels catching on the carpet. She looked at Malik, then at me, then back at Malik. "Mom," she whispered. "You called her Mom." Malik slowly turned to face her. The warmth evaporated from his face instantly. He looked at her with the clinical detachment of a surgeon looking at a tumor. "Excuse me," he said, his tone polite but devastatingly distant. "Do I know you?" Jasmine recoiled as if he had slapped her. "Do you know me?" she screeched. "Malik, I am your mother. I am Jasmine. I gave birth to you." Malik tilted his head to the side, studying her. "Jasmine," he repeated, testing the name on his tongue as if it tasted bad. "Ah, yes. I remember a Jasmine. She was the woman who left an 8-year-old boy to die in a storm because she wanted to go to Paris. Is that you?" The room gasped. Senator Davis covered his mouth. The wife of the bank CEO leaned in closer. Jasmine turned pale. "No, Malik, you do not understand. I was sick. I had to leave. I did it for you." "For me?" Malik asked, raising an eyebrow. "You stole my medicine money for me. You called me baggage for me. You left me with nothing but a suffocating lung infection for me." He took a step closer to her. He towered over her. "Let me clarify something for you, madam. You are not my mother. You are an egg donor. This woman," he gestured to me with a hand that didn't tremble, "is my mother. She is the one who worked 3 jobs to buy my inhalers. She is the one who sat in the ICU for 72 hours straight. She is the one who built this company from a basement so that I could go to college. She is my mother. You are just a biological accident." Brad stepped forward, trying to salvage the situation. He pushed Tyler in front of him. "Malik, please," Brad stammered. "The past is the past. We are family. Look at this. This is your brother, Tyler. He is sick, Malik. He needs help. We thought, since you are so successful." Malik looked down at Tyler. His expression softened just for a fraction of a second. He saw the illness in the boy's face. He saw the same fear he had felt 17 years ago. "Hello, Tyler," Malik said gently. "Hi, Tyler," whispered, looking up at the giant in the tuxedo. Malik looked back at Brad and Jasmine. His eyes hardened into diamonds. "You brought a sick, immunocompromised child into a crowded ballroom during flu season just to use him as a prop," Malik said, his voice dripping with disgust. "You are not just bad parents to me, you are bad parents, period." "We did not bring him as a prop," Jasmine cried, grabbing Malik's sleeve. "He needs a kidney, Malik. He is dying. You are his brother. You are a match. We know you are. You have to save him. It is your duty." Malik pulled his arm away from her grip. He brushed the fabric as if she had soiled it. "My duty?" He laughed, a cold, humorless sound. "You think you can walk back into my life after 17 years of silence, invade my gala, insult my mother, and demand an organ?" He signaled to Marcus, the head of security. Marcus, Malik said calmly, "These people are trespassing. They are not on the guest list and they are harassing the VIPs. Please escort them out." "No!" Jasmine screamed as Marcus and two other guards stepped forward. "You cannot do this. I am his mother. I have rights." "Naya, tell him. Tell him to stop." I took a sip of my water, watching the scene unfold. "I cannot tell him anything, Jasmine," I said coolly. "He is the CEO. I just work here." The guards grabbed Brad and Jasmine by the arms. Jasmine began to thrash, her sequins flying off in every direction. "You owe me." "Malik!" she shrieked, her voice echoing off the walls. "I gave you life. You owe me." Malik turned his back on her. He looked at the crowd who were watching in stunned silence. "I apologize for the disturbance, everyone," Malik said, his voice steady and commanding. "It appears we had some uninvited pests. Please enjoy the dinner. We have a lot of money to raise for children who actually have parents who love them." As the guards dragged Jasmine and Brad toward the exit, Jasmine's heels skidding on the marble, Malik turned back to me. He took my hand and kissed it. "You look beautiful, Mom," he said. "That color suits you." "It cost $5,000, I whispered, smiling, worth every penny. He winked. But as they reached the double doors, Jasmine let out one final desperate wail. "Tyler. What about Tyler? You are killing him." Malik froze. He turned around slowly. He looked at the boy standing alone in the middle of the dance floor, abandoned once again by parents who were more concerned with their own humiliation than his safety. "Wait," Malik said. The guards stopped. Malik walked back over to Tyler. He knelt down so he was eye level with the terrified 10-year-old. "You are not going with them," Malik said softly. He looked up at Marcus. "Call Child Protective Services," Malik ordered. "Tell them we have a case of medical neglect and endangerment, and get a wheelchair for him. He looks like he is about to collapse." Brad tried to lunge forward. "That is my son. Not anymore." Lucas stepped in, his lawyer voice projecting clearly. "You just endangered his life to run a scam. I have already drafted the emergency custody petition. You two are going to jail. Tyler is staying here." Jasmine's eyes went wide. She looked from Malik to Nia to Lucas. She realized finally the full extent of the trap. She hadn't just lost her chance at money. She hadn't just lost her reputation. She had lost her leverage. Malik stood up and placed a protective hand on Tyler's shoulder. "Take the trash out," Marcus, Malik said. And this time, as Jasmine was dragged through the doors, screaming obscenities, nobody looked at her with pity. They looked at her with the disdain reserved for something you scrape off your shoe. I walked over to Malik and Tyler. I looked down at the new boy who had just entered our lives. He looked up at me, confused and scared. It is okay, I told him, brushing a lock of hair from his forehead. You are safe now. The orchestra began to play a waltz. Malik held out his hand to me. Shall we dance, Mom? He asked. I took his hand. We stepped onto the floor, stepping over the sequins Jasmine had left behind. We danced. And for the first time in 17 years, the ghost was gone. The fortress was secure, and the view from the top was spectacular. But the night wasn't over yet. Lucas had one more document in his pocket, and the police were waiting in the lobby. The repayment phase had just begun. The ballroom was silent save for the pathetic sounds of Jasmine struggling against the grip of the security guards. She dug her heels into the plush carpet, her silver sequins shedding like dying scales. She looked wild, her hair disheveled, her makeup running in dark streaks down her face. She was not leaving without burning the house down. Wait! She screamed, her voice cracking with desperation. You cannot do this! You cannot steal my children! Malik, listen to me. Malik raised a hand. The guards paused, looking to him for instruction. He stood tall, adjusting his cufflinks with a slow, deliberate calmness that was more terrifying than any shout. He walked over to where Jasmine stood, panting and frantic. I am listening, Jasmine, he said, his voice echoing slightly in the vast room. You have 10 seconds. Make them count. Jasmine straightened up, trying to regain a shred of her former arrogance. She pointed a shaking finger at Tyler, who was sitting in the wheelchair the staff had brought, sipping a glass of juice Nia had given him. You are condemning your brother to death, she spat. You are the only one who can save him. You are his blood. He needs a kidney, and you are selfishly hoarding yours because you hate me. Is that it? Are you going to let an innocent boy die just to spite me? The crowd murmured. It was a low blow. A manipulation tactic designed to make Malik look like the villain. Malik looked at her, his expression unreadable. Then he reached into the inside pocket of his tuxedo. He didn't pull out a checkbook. He pulled out a folded piece of paper. You talk a lot about blood, Jasmine, Malik said quietly. And you talk a lot about saving lives. It is funny because I have the medical compatibility report right here. Jasmine's eyes widened. She lunged for the paper, but the guard held her back. I ran a genetic profile on Tyler the moment I saw him in the lobby. Malik lied smoothly, though in reality he had analyzed the data from the hospital records Lucas had subpoenaed hours ago. And you are right. He needs a transplant. But here is the tragic irony, Mother. He said the word mother with a sneer that cut like a knife. I am not a match, he said. My blood type is O positive, Tyler is a negative. I could not give him a kidney even if I wanted to. Jasmine blinked, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. But you are brothers, she stammered. Genetics are complicated, Malik said. But do you know who was a match? Do you know who had the perfect genetic profile to save that boy? He took a step closer to her, invading her personal space. You, Jasmine, you were a perfect match. Jasmine turned the color of ash. She started to shake her head violently. No, she whispered. No, I am not. I have low iron. I cannot donate. Malik laughed. It was a dark, dangerous sound. Stop lying, he said. We know about the trip to Istanbul in 2019. We know about the gambling debts Brad racked up in Macau. And we know about the private clinic where you sold your left kidney for $50,000 to pay off a loan shark. A collective gasp went through the room. The shock was palpable. The socialites of Atlanta stared at Jasmine with pure horror. You sold the organ that could have saved your son. Malik continued, his voice rising, filled with righteous fury. You sold it to save your own skin. You literally cashed in your body to cover a poker game, and now you have the audacity to come here and demand mine. Jasmine collapsed. Her legs gave out and she hung limp in the guard's arms, sobbing. The truth was out. The monster was naked for everyone to see. I had no choice, she wailed. They were going to kill us. And now you are killing him, Malik said coldly. But do not worry. Tyler is in my care now. And unlike you, I have the resources to find him a donor on the National Registry. I will buy him the best care in the world, something you could never afford. He turned away from her, signaling that he was done. Get her out of my sight. Wait! Lucas's voice rang out. My husband stepped forward from the crowd. He wasn't smiling. He looked like the shark lawyer he was born to be. He was holding a thick manila envelope. He walked up to Brad, who was cowering behind Jasmine. Brad Hayes and Jasmine Thompson. Lucas announced, his voice projecting to the back of the room. You have been served. He slapped the envelope against Brad's chest. Brad fumbled to catch it. What is this? Brad whispered. It is a bill, Lucas said. For 17 years of child support for Malik, we calculated the standard of living you enjoyed in Europe. The private jets, the yachts, the luxury cars. Under Georgia law, abandonment does not absolve you of financial responsibility. In fact, it triples it. Lucas adjusted his glasses, looking at the stunned couple. We also added the medical expenses for Malik's asthma treatments, which you stole the money for, plus interest, plus punitive damages for emotional distress. How much? Jasmine whispered, looking up from the floor. $4.8 million, Lucas said, payable immediately. Or we can discuss the payment plan, which involves the seizure of any remaining assets you have, including your passports, and a very long stay in a federal prison for child endangerment and fraud. Brad looked at the envelope, then at Jasmine. You said this would work, he screamed at her, his face turning purple. You said they were stupid. You said they would pay us. I didn't know. Jasmine sobbed. I didn't know. The guards didn't wait for any more drama. They hoisted Jasmine and Brad up and dragged them toward the exit. Nia, Jasmine screamed, looking back at me one last time. Nia, please. We are sisters. Do not let them take me. I am sorry. I am so sorry. I stood there in my emerald gown, the diamond earrings heavy on my lobes. I looked at the woman who had pushed me down, stepped on me, and left me to rot. I looked at the sister who had haunted my nightmares for 17 years. I walked over to her as the guards paused at the door. I leaned in close so only she could hear. You were right about one thing, Jasmine, I whispered. She looked at me with hope in her eyes. What? She gasped. Blood is thicker than water, I said, but money is thicker than both. And I have a lot more of it than you. I nodded to the guards. Goodbye, sister. They dragged her out. The heavy doors slammed shut, silencing her screams. The ballroom was quiet for a heartbeat. Then slowly, someone started to clap. It was Senator Davis. Then the chief of surgery joined in. Then the whole room erupted in thunderous applause. They weren't clapping for the drama. They were clapping for justice. Malik walked over to me. He put his arm around my shoulders. Lucas joined us on the other side. We stood there, a united front, a fortress that had withstood the siege. I looked at Tyler, who was watching us with wide, awestruck eyes. Malik winked at him. Come on, kid, Malik said. Let's get you some real food. And maybe a new kidney. As we walked out of the ballroom, leaving the whispers and the champagne behind, I felt a lightness in my chest I hadn't felt in decades. The weight was gone, the debt was paid. I looked at the camera one last time, breaking the fourth wall. They say success is the best revenge. But I disagree. Success is just the appetizer. The best revenge is living well, loving hard, and watching the people who betrayed you choke on their own regret. My name is Nia. I started as a waitress with a dying nephew and $800. Today, I am the matriarch of an empire. And my sister, well, she is just a cautionary tale. If you are going through hell, keep going. Build your fortress, sharpen your teeth, and never, ever let them see you bleed. Because one day the tables will turn, and when they do, you want to be the one holding the gavel. Thank you for listening to my story. If you have ever had to fight for your family against the people who should have loved you, leave a comment below. I read every single one. And remember, the crown is heavy, but it sure looks good in the light. Like and subscribe for more stories from the top of the world. Good night. This story serves as a powerful reminder that family is defined by commitment, not DNA. While Jasmine viewed her son as a burden to be discarded, Nia saw a life worth fighting for, proving that true wealth is found in loyalty and love. Nia's journey demonstrates that our deepest wounds can become the blueprints for our greatest successes. When toxic people walk out of your life, they aren't ruining your future. They are often clearing the path for your destiny. In the end, the best revenge isn't cruelty. It is thriving without those who prayed for your failure. Have you ever had to cut ties with a family member to protect your own peace and future? Tell me your story in the comments below, and please hit like and subscribe if you believe that justice always finds a way.